Close your eyes and let the frantic rush of the modern world completely fade away. Imagine the heavy weight of your daily worries lifting from your shoulders as we step backward through the mist of time, traversing over 2,000 years into the past. We are arriving in the year 25 BCE at the absolute height of the ancient world. You find yourself in Alexandria, Egypt, the magnificent jewel of the Mediterranean, a sprawling metropolis where the empires of Rome and Greece collide with the deep mystic traditions of the Pharos. Outside these walls, the city is an overwhelming assault on the senses. The great harbour is a chaotic maze of massive merchant ships, their wooden hulls groaning against the stone docks as sailors shout in a dozen different languages. The blinding Egyptian sun beats down mercilessly upon the crowded marble plazas, reflecting a scorching white glare that burns the eyes, while the hot desert wind carries the dusty, chaotic roar of chariots, haggling merchants, and the distant, restless murmur of thousands of souls. But you turn away from the dazzling heat and the exhausting noise. You step through a modest, heavy archway into the private estate of a master scholar tucked safely away in a quiet district. The moment you cross the threshold, the roaring chaos of the world instantly dies. It is cut off as if by magic. Step through a second doorway and you enter the estate's private library. Instantly, a profound wave of cool, soothing relief washes over your skin. The air here is beautifully dim, tempered by massive, thick walls of whitewashed limestone that completely repel the scorching outdoor heat. The blinding glare of the Mediterranean sun is entirely gone, filtered out by high, narrow windows near the ceiling that let in only the softest, most delicate ribbons of golden twilight. In this hidden sanctuary, the chaotic, violent flow of human history ceases to exist. It is replaced by an enduring, timeless atmosphere of absolute safety, stillness, and deep, quiet study. You are completely protected here. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere else you need to be. Just lean back into the cool shadows, breathe in the deeply grounding aroma of ancient wisdom, and let your mind dissolve into the perfect, unshakable calm of antiquity. As your eyes adjust to the soft, amber dimness, the exquisite details of this sanctuary begin to reveal themselves. The walls are lined from floor to ceiling with built-in wooden niches, each one meticulously crafted from fragrant cedar. Tucked neatly inside these cubicles are hundreds upon hundreds of papyrus scrolls, rolled tightly and resting side by side like sleeping secrets. At the absolute center of this silent room sits a large, magnificent desk carved from a solid piece of heavy Lebanese cedar wood. Its surface is smooth and dark, polished to a mirror-like sheen by decades of gentle use, catching the faint, lazy rays of light that stream down from above. Sitting at this desk is a solitary scribe. He is a man who moves with a slow, deliberate mindfulness that can only be attained through a lifetime of handling precious, irreplaceable things. He does not rush, he does not worry. His entire existence is anchored in the present moment, dedicated to preserving the thoughts of the greatest minds who ever lived. His task today is both simple and deeply profound: to carefully inspect an ancient, fragile manuscript, to check the integrity of its dark reed ink, and to register its title on a small parchment tag. Watch him as he reaches out with long, slender fingers, his movements smooth and incredibly gentle. He touches the aged papyrus with immense reverence. Listen closely to the profound silence of this library. It is not an empty, lonely void, but a rich, comforting, and deeply textured quietness. The only sound that dares to break the stillness is the crisp, dry whisper of the papyrus as the scribe slowly unrolls it across the smooth cedar wood. It is a soft, rhythmic, and incredibly soothing sound that punctuates the absolute quiet of the sanctuary. The paper-like fibers of the dried Nile reeds rub gently against one another, creating a delicate crackling melody that acts as an immediate balm for a tired mind. With every single inch that the scroll opens, another layer of historical memory is revealed, safe from the damp sea air and safe from the destructive fires of the outside world. The air in the room is remarkably dry, kept that way by design to protect the fragile fibers of the scrolls. As you breathe in deeply, you inhale a comforting, earthy fragrance that instantly settles your thoughts. The dominant note is the sharp, clean, and protective scent of cedar oil, which the scribe rubs onto the wooden shelves to repel insects. Blending seamlessly with the cedar is the metallic, organic aroma of freshly mixed black ink, made from soot and gum arabic, resting quietly in a small clay well on the desk. Underneath it all is the sweet, slightly grassy smell of the ancient papyrus itself, the scent of thoughts captured, dried, and preserved across generations. Looking up, you can see tiny dust motes dancing lazily in the golden sunbeams, moving so slowly they appear almost frozen in time. There is no rush here. There are no deadlines, no stresses, and no distractions. There is only the scholar's desk, the dry whisper of ancient knowledge, and an overwhelming, heavy sense of peace that wraps around you like a warm blanket, guiding you into a state of deep, effortless relaxation. The scribe gently rests his palms upon the unrolled surface of the papyrus, letting the warmth of his hands flatten the resilient curve of the ancient reed paper. The texture beneath his fingers is uneven, a beautiful landscape of microscopic ridges and valleys formed by the cross-woven strips of the Nile River plant. You can hear the faint, coarse friction as his fingertips trace the margins, a sound so incredibly soft it mimics the breath of a sleeping child. This particular scroll has traveled far to reach this private library in Alexandria. It was copied decades ago in a quiet scriptorium along the banks of the Nile in Upper Egypt, and its journey through time has left subtle marks upon its surface. The edges are darkened to a rich tobacco hue, charred not by flame but by the natural, slow oxidation of centuries. Yet, within these thick walls, the destructive hand of time seems to lose its power. The air remains perfectly still, holding its breath so as not to disturb a single grain of dust that has settled on the cedar shelves. The scribe lifts a small, smooth weight made of polished green basalt and places it carefully on the upper corner of the manuscript to keep it from rolling back into itself. The stone meets the wood with a dull, solid click that echoes faintly through the high arches of the room, a singular note of grounding reality in this sea of absolute quiet. He reaches for his tools, his movements so deliberate and unhurried that they feel almost liturgical. On the right side of the cedar desk rests a long, narrow wooden pallet, grooved to hold his reed pens known as kalami. These pens are fashioned from the sturdy stalks of marsh reeds, harvested from the shallows of the delta, dried in the Mediterranean sun until they turned a pale straw color, and then sharpened to a fine angled nib with a small bronze knife. The scribe selects a well-worn pen, its tip darkened by years of absorbing black ink. He balances it perfectly between his fingers, feeling its weightless, familiar form. There is an extraordinary simplicity to these instruments. A reed, some soot, a piece of dried river plant, and yet through them the thoughts of human beings transcend their mortal lifespans, echoing down through the ages to meet us here in the dim light of this sanctuary. The silence deepens as he dips the tip of the reed into a small, unglazed ceramic inkwell. Inside the well, the black ink is a thick, lustrous liquid composed of pure carbon soot scraped from the inside of oil lamps, meticulously kneaded with a binder of clear gum arabic collected from acacia trees. It smells faintly of wood smoke and honey, an aroma that blends harmoniously with the overarching scent of cedar oil that blankets the entire room. With the inked pen in hand, the scribe leans slightly forward, his eyes scanning the columns of Greek script that stretch across the papyrus like rows of disciplined soldiers. The writing is an elegant, uncial hand, where every letter is formed with rounded, majestic strokes, devoid of spaces between words, creating a continuous ribbon of thought. He searches for any signs of fading, any places where the ink has flaked away or where the damp sea air of Alexandria might have caused the iron gall components to eat through the delicate fibers. As he finds a section where a letter has grown faint, he lowers the reed pen to the surface. The contact is instantaneous and silent, but as he begins to trace the curve of an ancient letter, a magnificent sound fills the small space between him and the desk. It is the rhythmic scratch of the sharpened reed passing over the textured ridges of the papyrus. It is a hypnotic, deeply satisfying sound, a physical manifestation of thought being restored. The crisp, dry friction speaks of ancient craftsmanship, of a time when every word required physical labor, patience, and absolute focus. The scribe does not move his arm, only his fingers flex with micro-movements, guiding the pen with absolute precision. The black ink leaves the nib, flowing effortlessly into the thirsty fibrous valleys of the papyrus, turning a faded grey letter into a bold midnight black statement that will survive for another 100 years. You can hear the slight click of the pen as it lifts from the surface at the end of a stroke, followed by the soft intake of the scribe's breath as he pauses to evaluate his work. The air in the library remains cool and utterly undisturbed, a protective cocoon that isolates this desk from the infinite distractions of the outer world. He continues this slow, meditative restoration, column by column moving across the scroll with the patience of a river carving through stone. There is no ticking clock in this room, no mechanical device to measure the passing of hours. Time is measured only by the steady consumption of ink, the gradual movement of the golden sunbeam across the stone floor, and the lengthening shadows within the wall niches. The high, narrow slits of the windows ensure that no direct sunlight ever touches the manuscripts, for the sun is a fierce enemy of the ancient page, capable of bleaching the ink and rendering the papyrus brittle and yellow. Instead, the light that enters is soft, indirect and cool, bouncing off the deep embrasures of the stone walls to create a diffused, gentle glow that illuminates the desk without creating harsh glare. In this soft light, the dust motes continue their slow, eternal ballet, drifting through the air like microscopic stars in a silent universe. As the scribe works, the absolute tranquility of the library settles over your spirit like a heavy, comforting velvet cloak. The distant noises of the Alexandrian harbour, the shouting of merchants, the clanking of iron chains, the screaming of gulls are entirely filtered out by the immense thickness of the whitewashed limestone walls. It is as if the estate exists in a separate dimension, a pocket of absolute peace carved out of the chaotic fabric of the Roman Empire. Here you are safe from the demands of the world. There is no one calling for your attention, no problems waiting to be solved, no anxieties about the future. Everything that matters is contained within this room. The smooth cedar wood, the rich scent of cedar oil and ink, and the comforting rhythmic whisper of the scribe's pen. You are permitted to simply exist, to let your breathing synchronize with the slow, deliberate movements of the old scholar, and to drift down into a state of profound, uninterrupted relaxation. The scribe reaches the end of the first section of the scroll. He lifts the polished green basalt weight, its smooth bottom making a faint sliding sound against the papyrus. With his left hand, he gently rolls the completed section back onto its wooden dowel, while his right hand unrolls the next segment. The papyrus speaks once more, a long, dry, rustling sigh that fills the room, a sound like autumn leaves scraping softly across a stone terrace in a gentle breeze. The fibers shift and settle, releasing a fresh wave of that sweet, grassy, ancient aroma that characterizes old manuscripts. The scribe adjusts his posture, rolling his shoulders slightly, before placing the stone weight down once again. He takes a deep, quiet breath, dips his reed pen into the dark inkwell, and prepares to continue his eternal task, guiding you deeper and deeper into the quiet, protected heart of ancient history. The next segment of the ancient papyrus lies open before the scribe, held firmly in place by the soothing weight of the polished basalt stone. This section of the manuscript contains a beautifully copied philosophical discourse, originally written by an early thinker of Athens, discussing the nature of tranquility and the human soul. The scribe passes his eyes over the lines of text, his lips moving silently as he reads the words to himself, absorbing their meaning before he begins to check the state of the ink. The quiet rhythm of his internal reading seems to project a deeper layer of stillness into the room, an intellectual calm that matches the physical serenity of the library. The high, thick limestone walls continue to act as an unyielding shield against the outside world, absorbing the fierce heat of the Egyptian afternoon and turning it into a pleasant, cool shade that wraps around your body like a protective embrace. You can hear the tiny, delicate sound of the scribe's fingertips brushing against the margin of the sheet, checking for any roughness or structural weakness where the layers of the papyrus plant might have begun to separate over time. The papyrus plant, harvested from the fertile mud of the Nile, was prepared by cutting the inner pith into thin, long strips, which were then laid side by side in two perpendicular layers, pressed together and beaten with a wooden mallet. The natural sap of the plant acted as a permanent glue, bonding the fibers into a remarkably strong and flexible writing surface. As the scribe handles the ancient document, you can hear that characteristic dry, textured rustle, a crisp, fibrous murmur that whispers of the riverbanks where it grew, the sunshine that nourished it, and the human hands that shaped it into a vessel for immortal thought. He dips his reed pen once again into the small clay inkwell, the tip making a faint wet sound as it breaks the surface of the thick black carbon liquid. The scent of wood smoke, honey, and acacia gum rises softly from the well, floating upward to mingle with the heavy, comforting blanket of cedar oil that infuses every corner of the private sanctuary. The scribe holds the pen still for a brief second, allowing the excess ink to drip back into the well. A tiny drop hitting the liquid below with a sound so faint it is almost imperceptible. This slow, deliberate pause embodies the entire spirit of the library. Here, haste is an unknown concept. There is an endless supply of time, an infinite reservoir of quiet moments stretched out like the desert sands beyond the city walls. When he lowers the pen to the page, the rhythmic, soothing scratch begins anew. The angled nib of the marsh reed kisses the textured surface of the paper, creating a beautiful contrast between the absolute silence of the room and the intentional, focused sound of writing. The sound is incredibly steady, a testament to the scribe's immense mastery and relaxed state of mind. Each stroke is a calculated act of preservation, ensuring that the philosophy of the past remains sharp and legible for scholars who will visit this private estate decades after he is gone. The dark ink leaves a wet, glossy sheen on the page for just a few moments before the thirsty, ancient fibers of the papyrus drink it deep into their core, turning the letters into a permanent matted black that will withstand the humidity of the Mediterranean coast. You can hear the rhythmic lifting and lowering of the pen, a comforting cadence that acts like a gentle metronome for your thoughts, lulling your mind into a deeper state of relaxation. As you sit in the deep shadows of this ancient library, you can feel the residual tension leaving your muscles, melting away with every stroke of the scribe's pen. The environment is perfectly optimized for rest and deep contemplation. The high, narrow windows are designed so that the intense glare of the Alexandrian sky never directly hits the eyes, creating a sanctuary of soft, diffused amber light that feels incredibly gentle and restorative. The tiny dust motes continue their slow, hypnotic drift through the air, caught in the faint, warm ribbons of light, moving with an absolute lack of urgency that mirrors your own state of being. The scribe finishes restoring a complex passage regarding the harmony of the universe. He sets his reed pen down on the grooved wooden pallet, the light wood meeting wood with a hollow, gentle clatter. He takes a deep, slow breath, expanding his chest as he looks over the beautifully restored column of text. The silence of the room rushes back in to fill the brief pause, a heavy, luxurious silence that feels thick and tangible. He reaches for a small, shallow bowl containing fine, white sand gathered from the desert dunes beyond Alexandria. Picking up a small pinch of the sand between his fingers, he scatters it lightly over the wet ink to dry it completely and prevent any smudging when the scroll is rolled back together. The sound of the tiny sand grains raining down onto the crisp papyrus is magical, a soft whispering hiss, like the sound of distant waves breaking gently upon a sandy shore. He lets the sand sit on the page for a minute, allowing it to absorb any remaining moisture from the fresh ink. During this minute, the library achieves an even deeper level of stillness. The air is perfectly balanced, carrying the rich, grounding sense of earth, cedar, and ancient history. The outside world, with all its chaotic politics, its noisy marketplaces, and its endless demands, feels like a distant dream, an illusion that has no power over this sacred space of knowledge. You are completely safe, completely insulated, and permitted to let go of every single worry as you sink deeper into the timeless peace of this Alexandrian night. The scribe gently tips the papyrus scroll to the side, allowing the fine desert sand to slide off the surface and collect into a small wooden tray at the corner of his cedar desk. The sound of the grains sliding across the dried reed paper is a soft, sweeping rustle, a miniature avalanche of crystal dust that leaves the restored letters completely dry, crisp and starkly black against the golden-brown background. He takes a soft feather brush, crafted from the downy plumage of a Nile waterfowl, and lightly sweeps the page to remove any remaining stray crystals. The whisper of the feathers across the manuscript is an incredibly delicate, ethereal sound, a ghostly breeze that passes over the ancient wisdom without disturbing a single fibre. Every movement he makes is infused with a deep, meditative calmness, an unspoken understanding that the work being done in this room is eternal, far outlasting the fragile mortal lives of those who walk the noisy streets of Alexandria outside. With the first few columns of the philosophical text fully inspected and restored, it is now time for the scribe to perform the vital task of cataloguing. He reaches toward the back of his desk where a small basket woven from dried palm leaves sits in the dim light. From this basket, he extracts a narrow strip of fine parchment, thin and supple, which has been dyed a soft, distinctive crimson color using juices extracted from Mediterranean Kermes insects. This is a syllabose, the index tag that will hang from the end of the scroll, allowing future scholars to easily identify the title and author of the work without having to unroll the delicate papyrus itself. The parchment feels different from the papyrus. It is smoother, colder, and heavier, a clean slate waiting to receive its identifying marks. He selects a fresh calamus from his wooden palette, a reed pen with an exceptionally fine point, designed specifically for writing small, clear labels. He dips the tip into the black inkwell, the wet carbon clinging perfectly to the sharp nib. The aroma of the ink, rich with wood smoke and acacia gum, floats gently toward his face, a familiar and deeply comforting scent that signals the continuity of his craft. He stabilizes the crimson parchment strip with the fingertips of his left hand, and then, with absolute focus, he begins to write. The scratch of the fine nib on the smooth parchment is higher in pitch than the sound it made on the papyrus, a sharper, crisper, more metallic whisper that sings in the quiet air of the private library. He carefully shapes each letter of the author's name, followed by the title of the treatise. The small letters appear in perfect mathematical symmetry, standing out boldly against the crimson background. This act of naming and cataloguing brings a profound sense of order and security to the library. In a world full of chaotic changes, where empires rise and fall and library walls face the constant threat of time, this small tag represents a triumphant preservation of human thought. It is an invitation to future generations to sit, read, learn, and find peace within these walls. If you are enjoying this journey into the profound tranquility of ancient Alexandria, please take a brief moment to support our channel by subscribing, hitting the like button, and leaving a comment below to share what comforts you most about this peaceful sanctuary. Your support helps us continue to craft these historical escapes for your relaxation. The scribe finishes the final letter of the title, lifting his pen with a swift, graceful movement that cuts off the ink cleanly. He sets the fine reed pen back into its groove on the palette, the small hollow sound signaling another task successfully completed. He watches the wet ink on the crimson tag for a few moments as it catches the soft, indirect amber light from the high windows. The ink dries slowly, changing from a glossy liquid midnight to a deep, permanent matte black that binds itself to the fibers of the parchment. The silence of the room returns to its absolute fullness, a heavy, rich quiet that seems to vibrate with the accumulated weight of the hundreds of scrolls resting in the surrounding walls. He takes a small bone needle threaded with a fine cord of braided linen, a strong and durable thread made from flax grown in the fertile soils of the Egyptian delta. With practiced ease, he pierces the edge of the crimson tag and loops the linen thread through, tying a small, neat knot that will hold for centuries. He then attaches the other end of the cord to the upper wooden dowel of the papyrus scroll, the umbilicus around which the sheet is wrapped. The tiny, intricate sounds of his fingers working with the thread, the soft friction of linen against wood, the light snap of the knot tightening, are the only noises in the magnificent stillness of the private estate. The library remains a flawless oasis of safety, entirely detached from the burning heat and the chaotic noise of the world outside, inviting you to release the remaining tension from your mind and drift deeper into the soft, comforting shadows of ancient history. The linen thread is now secure, binding the crimson parchment tag firmly to the core of the ancient scroll. The scribe shifts his attention back to the wide expanse of the unrolled papyrus, preparing to guide it gently back into its compact, protective form. He places his hands on either side of the manuscript, his fingers making contact with the smooth wood of the two cylindrical rollers around which the sheet is anchored. With a synchronized, incredibly fluid motion of his wrists, he begins the process of rolling. The papyrus speaks once more in its unique, comforting language, a continuous, low and rhythmic rustling sound that seems to fill the entire volume of the dim room. It is a beautiful, organic melody, the sound of hundreds of strips of dried river reed, sliding smoothly over one another as the scroll contracts. The sound rises and falls in perfect harmony with the scribe's slow, steady breathing. As the scroll rolls tighter and tighter, it releases a fresh, concentrated wave of its grounding fragrance into the cool air. The sweet, grassy scent of the ancient plant fibers blends seamlessly with the sharp, resinous perfume of the cedar oil and the smoky undertones of the freshly applied ink. It is an aroma of preservation, an olfactory shield that has kept the destructive forces of decay at bay for generations, creating an atmosphere that feels completely isolated from the transient nature of the outside world. The scribe works with an immense, unhurried precision, ensuring that the edges of the papyrus align perfectly with every turn, so that they do not crimp or tear against the wooden discs at the ends of the rollers. His movements are a testament to the power of single-minded focus. In this room, there is no multitasking, no frantic rushing from one duty to the next, and no digital interruptions to shatter the continuity of thought. There is only the physical reality of the scroll, the smooth texture of the cedar desk, and the profound, healing silence that wraps around the entire estate like a thick fortress. The heavy limestone walls remain cool to the touch, silently absorbing the intense, radiant heat of the Mediterranean afternoon and keeping the interior environment at a blissful, unchanging temperature. As the scroll finally closes completely, the two wooden rollers meet at the center with a soft, hollow thud that signals the successful conclusion of the cataloging process. The crimson syllabus hangs neatly from the top, its black letters perfectly legible, ready to identify the philosophical treatise to any future scholar who climbs the wooden steps to retrieve it. The scribe lifts the tightly rolled manuscript from the desk, holding it in both hands as if it were a fragile, sacred relic. The weight of the scroll is surprisingly solid, a physical condensation of human intellect, creativity, and memory preserved through centuries of care. He stands up from his cedar chair, the dark wood shifting slightly against the stone floor with a low, muted scrape that quickly dies away into the vast silence of the library. He walks slowly toward the western wall of the room, where the built-in cedar niches are carved deep into the limestone structure. His leather sandals make no sound upon the smooth, polished flagstones, for he walks with the quiet grace of a man who respects the absolute stillness of his environment. As he approaches the shelves, the aroma of cedar oil grows even stronger, a deep, woody, and intensely comforting scent that acts as an immediate sedative for the mind, slowing down your heartbeat and clearing away the lingering remnants of modern anxiety. He finds the exact niche assigned to this specific branch of philosophy. The shelf is lined with other scrolls, all resting side by side in perfect geometric order, their colored tags hanging down like a fringe of vibrant fabric against the dark wood. The scribe carefully slides the newly restored scroll into its designated slot. The papyrus brushes against its neighbors with a brief, gentle whisper, a soft, welcoming murmur from the other voices of antiquity before sliding fully into place. The task is complete. The scroll is safe, catalogued, and protected within the heart of Alexandria, waiting silently in the cool shadows for the passage of time to roll onward, entirely undisturbed by the chaos of the empires that clash beyond these peaceful walls. The scribe stands before the wall of cedar niches, his hands resting lightly against the smooth limestone framework as he contemplates the vast, silent assembly of human thought. Each niche holds a cluster of scrolls, a collective treasury of poetry, geometry, astronomy, and philosophy gathered from every corner of the known world. The absolute quiet of the room wraps around him like a physical presence, a thick, comforting weight that stills the mind and slows the passage of hours into a gentle, imperceptible drift. High above, the narrow windows continue to catch the fading afternoon light, casting long geometric shadows across the polished stone floor. The tiny dust motes float through these amber beams with a serene, aimless grace, completely unaffected by the storms of history raging outside the heavy estate walls. He turns away from the shelves with a slow, deliberate pivot, his eyes scanning the quiet expanse of his sanctuary. This room is more than just a storage place for manuscripts. It is a fortress of peace, an intentional design created to shelter the fragile spark of intellect from a chaotic world. The thick, whitewashed walls act as a perfect barrier, completely neutralizing the oppressive heat of the Egyptian sun and filtering out the frantic industrial noise of the nearby Alexandrian harbor. In here, the frantic shouting of merchants, the clattering of horse hooves on stone plazas, and the distant, restless energy of the empire cannot penetrate. You are completely safe within this cool, dim enclosure, permitted to let go of every modern distraction and sink into a deep, unshakable state of mental rest. The scribe walks back to his heavy cedar desk, his footsteps making nothing more than a faint, rhythmic pressure against the smooth flagstones. He sits down once more in his high-backed chair, letting his body settle into the natural contours of the dark wood. The desk before him is now clear, a pristine surface of polished Lebanese cedar that reflects the soft light like the surface of a still mountain lake. He rests his forearms on the wood, feeling its cool, grounding solidity beneath his skin. This simple act of sitting in stillness is a meditation in itself. There is no urgency to begin the next task, no ticking clock demanding immediate action, and no expectation of haste. The library operates on cosmic time, aligned with the slow rotation of the stars and the seasonal flooding of the Nile. He reaches out his hand to touch the smooth surface of the unglazed clay inkwell, tracing its circular rim with the tip of his finger. The thick black carbon ink within rests perfectly still, its dark surface reflecting a miniature, distorted image of the high window above. The scent of the ink, rich with the organic, smoky undertones of burnt oil and the subtle sweetness of acacia gum, rises gently to meet him. It is a deeply comforting, familiar aroma that evokes a sense of profound stability and continuity, combined with the overarching, powerful fragrance of cedar oil that infuses the shelves. The air in the library feels thick with preservation, a sensory blanket that cradles the nervous system and coaxes the mind into a state of effortless, deep relaxation. As the shadows lengthen across the room, the scribe closes his eyes for a brief moment, letting the pure silence of the sanctuary wash over his senses. Every muscle in his body relaxes, releasing the tiny tensions of the day into the boundless quiet of the estate. In this space, you too are invited to release your burdens, to let your breath slow to a steady rhythmic pattern that matches the absolute stillness of the Alexandrian twilight. There is nothing you need to accomplish, no problems you need to solve, and no worries that can reach you within these sacred walls. You are completely protected, held in an enduring atmosphere of quiet safety and timeless study. Sleepy History with Theodore is a sleep history storytelling platform created for entertainment, inspiration, education, and the promotion of positive emotional values. The scribe opens his eyes, greeted once again by the soft amber dimness of his sanctuary. The brief interlude of closed-eye meditation has deepened the sense of peace within the room, making the surrounding air feel even more cool, stable, and completely disconnected from the passing of modern epochs. He reaches toward a separate, lower shelf built into the side of his massive cedar desk, where a new bundle of raw materials awaits his attention. These are fresh sheets of papyrus, recently delivered from the manufacturing workshops in the outer suburbs of the city, near the fresh waters of Lake Mareotis. Before he can begin transcribing a new text, he must inspect these blank sheets, ensuring their quality, texture, and readiness to receive the timeless thoughts of the scholars. He lifts the bundle onto the smooth surface of the desk, the stack making a light, crisp sound as it settles onto the dark wood. The sheets are unbound, held together simply by a wide ribbon of woven flax. The scribe unties the linen knot with slow, deliberate movements, unlooping the thread with a grace that transforms a mundane action into an act of profound mindfulness. As the flax ribbon falls away, the top sheet of papyrus catches the indirect light streaming from the high, narrow windows. The color is a beautiful pale ivory, a sign that the inner pith of the river reed was harvested at the perfect moment of maturity and processed with absolute mastery by the craftsman. He takes the first sheet and holds it up toward the soft light, his long fingers supporting the delicate edges with immense care. Looking through the sheet, the intricate, grid-like internal structure of the papyrus becomes visible. The vertical strips, laid perfectly flat over the horizontal strips, create a beautiful, organic tapestry of intersecting fibers. You can see the tiny natural imperfections, the subtle variations in shading, the occasional speck of dark plant matter trapped within the press, which give each sheet its unique living character. The sound of the sheet shifting in his hands is an incredibly gentle, dry whisper, a delicate friction that speaks of water, earth, and ancient sunlight captured within the dried cells of the plant. The scribe lowers the sheet back to the smooth cedar desk and runs the palm of his right hand across its surface. The texture is pleasantly rustic yet remarkably smooth, a balance achieved by the careful polishing of the dried sheet with a smooth piece of ivory or a rounded seashell. As his hand glides across the page, a soft, sweeping sound fills the quiet room, a steady hiss that sounds like a gentle summer wind moving through a field of tall grass. This physical contact allows him to feel for any rough spots, any loose fibers that might catch the sharp nib of his reed pen, or any thin areas where the ink might bleed through to the other side. Satisfied with the quality of the first sheet, he sets it aside and repeats the process with the next, his movements falling into a rhythmic, hypnotic cadence. With every sheet he inspects and smooths, the rich, earthy fragrance of the fresh papyrus fills the immediate air around the desk. Unlike the older scrolls in the wall niches, which carry the sharp, resinous perfume of cedar oil and aged ink, these fresh sheets smell cleanly of the riverbanks, a sweet, grassy, and slightly sun-baked aroma that brings a sense of natural vitality into the cool, stone-lined library. This scent acts as an anchor for the mind, drawing your thoughts away from the abstract anxieties of the future and grounding them completely in the physical, sensory reality of this peaceful room. The library remains an unshakable fortress of calm. The immense limestone walls, multiple feet thick, continue to stand as an absolute barrier against the blazing Egyptian sun, holding the internal temperature at an ideal, refreshing cool. Outside, the great city of Alexandria may be navigating the shifting tides of politics, commerce, and empire under the Roman rule of Augustus Caesar, but within this private estate, those grand historical movements mean nothing. Here, the only currency is knowledge, and the only metric of success is the preservation of absolute quietude. You are entirely permitted to let go of the world outside, to yield to the heavy, comforting stillness of this room, and to let your consciousness drift downward into a state of deep, restorative rest alongside the ancient materials of the scribe's craft. The scribe finishes his inspection of the fresh papyrus sheets, stacking them neatly at the edge of the cedar desk. His hands move with a practiced rhythm that carries no trace of fatigue or impatience, a physical expression of the absolute tranquility that defines this entire estate. The small pile of ivory-colored paper stands ready, a collection of clean slates waiting to be filled with the preserved wisdom of past generations. He rests his hands on his lap, allowing the deep, heavy silence of the library to reclaim the space completely. The air remains beautifully cool and motionless, a soothing atmosphere that gently lowers your heart rate and allows your breathing to expand into a slow, effortless cadence. Looking around the room, the shadows have stretched even further, painting the limestone walls with long, dark strokes of purple and blue. The high, narrow windows now filter a deep golden orange light, the final breath of the Egyptian sun as it sinks toward the western horizon beyond the city. This changing light transforms the library into an ethereal cavern of gold and shadow. The built-in cedar niches, packed tightly with their precious contents, seem to glow with a quiet inner warmth, their crimson and blue title tags catching the stray glints of twilight. The tiny dust motes, still floating in their eternal lazy orbits, look like sparks of starlight suspended in the air, creating a visual symphony of slow, hypnotic movement that draws your eyes and lulls your mind into a state of profound relaxation. The scribe reaches for his sharpened bronze knife, an instrument with a polished bone handle that rests at the corner of his wooden pallet. He intends to prepare a new batch of reed pens, a task that requires a delicate touch and absolute concentration. He selects a raw, hollow stalk of dried marsh reed from a leather pouch on the floor. The reed is lightweight and stiff, its golden surface smooth to the touch. Holding the stalk in his left hand, he places the blade of the bronze knife against the tip. With a tiny, precise shave, he slices the end of the reed at an angle, exposing the hollow interior chamber. The sound of the sharp bronze cutting through the dry reed is a crisp, clean snap, a miniature click that emphasizes the absolute stillness of the room rather than breaking it. He carefully carves the tip into a flat, narrow nib, then makes a tiny vertical slit down the center of the point. This slit is crucial. It allows the capillary action of the ink to flow smoothly and continuously onto the papyrus, preventing blots and ensuring a steady line of text. The scribe tests the flexibility of the newly formed nib against his thumbnail, feeling the slight spring of the wood. The quiet sounds of this craftsmanship, the soft scraping of the blade, the light tap of the reed against the desk, are deeply comforting. A reminder of an era when everything was created by hand, with patience, intent, and a profound respect for the natural materials provided by the earth. As you immerse yourself further into the sensory environment of this ancient library, you can feel a total sense of security enveloping your mind. The massive limestone architecture of the private estate shields you from every possible disruption. There are no sudden noises, no flashing alerts, and no demands on your time or energy. The air is perfectly balanced, carrying the grounding rich scent of cedar oil, the metallic undertones of the inkwell, and the clean, grassy fragrance of the fresh papyrus. You are completely insulated within this pocket of ancient history, a sanctuary of safety where the chaotic flow of time has ground to a complete halt, leaving you free to rest deeply. Sleepy History with Theodore combines the power of AI to reimagine fictional historical tales, bringing peace, relaxation, and positive emotional values to our listeners. The newly fashioned reed pen joins its companions on the grooved cedar palette, resting neatly alongside the polished bronze knife and the ivory smoothing tools. The scribe sits back slightly in his high-back chair, letting his hands rest flat against the cool dark wood of the desk. His palms absorb the solid, grounding texture of the ancient cedar, a wood that grew for centuries in the high mountains before being brought to this quiet room in Alexandria. The complete stillness of the library settles over him once more, a profound and luxurious quiet that feels almost thick enough to touch. The deep shadows in the corners of the room expand further as the golden-orange light from the high windows softens into a delicate, dusky purple, signaling the arrival of the Mediterranean evening. Every element of this private estate is designed to nurture the spirit and protect the delicate inner life of the mind. The massive limestone walls, which have stood firm against the changing seasons, continue to radiate a gentle, consistent coolness that balances the body and invites deep, rhythmic breathing. Within this sanctuary, the chaotic noise and relentless demands of the outer world hold absolutely no power. The frantic shouting of sailors at the great port, the grinding wheels of iron-rimmed chariots on the stone streets, and the heavy anxieties of an expanding empire are completely locked away outside. You are perfectly insulated here, wrapped in a cocoon of absolute safety, where you are permitted to let go of every lingering worry, allowing your thoughts to dissolve into the timeless, comforting shadows of antiquity. As the dusk deepens, the scribe prepares to light a small oil lamp to provide a soft, localized glow for his evening reading. He reaches for a beautifully crafted ceramic lamp that sits at the edge of his cedar desk, its reddish clay surface stamped with the image of a traditional Nile lotus flower. The lamp is filled to the brim with pure golden olive oil pressed from the groves of Cyrene. A thick wick made of twisted flax protrudes from the narrow nozzle, fully saturated with the clean oil. The scribe takes a small piece of flint and an iron striker from a small bronze box, holding them just above the wick. With a swift, practiced strike of his hand, he brings the metal against the stone. A tiny cluster of bright sparks cascades downward in the dim room, accompanied by a sharp, metallic click that echoes softly against the high stone ceiling. The spark catches the oily flax, and a tiny, fragile blue flame blooms into existence at the tip of the wick. For a few seconds, the small flame dances unsteadily, casting long, shifting shadows across the smooth surface of the cedar desk and the nearby stacks of pale papyrus sheets. Then, as the flax draws more of the heavy olive oil upward, the flame stabilizes, expanding into a warm, steady, and radiant amber glow. The light is incredibly soft and gentle on the eyes, illuminating only the immediate circle of the desk while leaving the rest of the expansive library in a comforting, velvety darkness. The small flame produces a faint, soothing warmth that contrasts beautifully with the refreshing chill of the stone walls. The lighting of the lamp releases a subtle, new fragrance into the quiet air of the private sanctuary. The clean, slightly nutty scent of burning olive oil rises in a thin, almost invisible ribbon of smoke, blending harmoniously with the overarching perfume of cedar oil from the niches and the metallic, grounding aroma of the reed ink. This combination of scents creates a rich, soothing atmosphere that immediately calms the nervous system, signaling to the mind that it is time to rest, to let go of analytical thought, and to yield to the profound stillness of the evening. If you find yourself deeply comforted by the peaceful atmosphere of this ancient Alexandrian library, please take a moment to support our journey by clicking the like button, subscribing to the channel, and sharing your thoughts in a comment below. Your wonderful support allows us to continue creating these tranquil spaces for your nightly relaxation. The scribe leans forward slightly, the amber light of the oil lamp illuminating the gentle lines of his face and the steady, relaxed posture of his shoulders. He picks up one of his newly carved reed pens, feeling its light, balanced weight between his fingers. He does not begin to write immediately. Instead, he simply looks at the pristine surface of the blank papyrus sheet before him, appreciating the quiet potential of the moment. The dust motes that were dancing in the sunbeams earlier are now invisible in the darkness, but the absolute tranquility of the room remains unchanged, a steady, unyielding anchor in a moving world. You are completely safe, completely free from distractions, and invited to sink deeper into a state of effortless, profound sleep as the ancient night folds over Alexandria. The amber flame of the small ceramic oil lamp flickers gently on the corner of the cedar desk, casting a warm, localized glow across the empty ivory-colored sheet of papyrus. The rest of the library has now dissolved into a deep, velvety darkness, where the rows of built-in wall niches and their hundreds of sleeping scrolls are barely visible in the shadows. The scribe sits entirely still, his fingers loosely holding the new reed pen, his breathing slow and synchronized with the quiet rise and fall of the tiny flame. The heavy limestone walls, which have absorbed the heat of the day, now release a soothing, refreshing coolness that fills the room like a gentle, invisible tide, calming your skin and encouraging your mind to let go of any remaining tension. You can hear the extremely faint, rhythmic sound of the olive oil drawing up through the twisted flax wick, a microscopic hiss that is only perceptible because the rest of the library is locked in such a profound state of silence. The absolute quiet of the estate is a magnificent shield, preventing the night sounds of Alexandria from penetrating this inner sanctuary. Out in the harbour, the waves of the Mediterranean may be lapping against the stone breakwaters, and the city guards may be walking their rounds along the wide plazas. But inside this room, all of human history feels like a distant, irrelevant whisper. You are completely disconnected from the flow of time, safely tucked away in a space where nothing is expected of you, nothing is demanded of you, and there are no problems to solve. The scribe leans forward slightly, bringing the nib of his reed pen close to the dark surface of the clay inkwell. He dips the tip with a slow vertical motion, allowing the thick carbon liquid to coat the split point of the reed. The gentle aroma of wood smoke and sweet gum Arabic rises from the well, floating through the warm air around the lamp to reinforce the grounding, rustic atmosphere of the desk. He holds the pen over the well for 3 slow heartbeats, watching a single glossy black drop form on the tip and slide cleanly back into the liquid below. This unhurried patience defines his entire existence. Every motion is deliberate, every second is savoured, and there is no room for haste in the preservation of ancient wisdom. He places his left hand flat upon the upper edge of the fresh papyrus sheet, his skin meeting the textured grain of the dried river reeds. He lowers the pen to the very top column, choosing a spot near the left margin to begin his evening transcription. The contact between the reed and the paper is silent, but as his hand begins to move, shaping the very first letter of a magnificent ancient text, a beautiful, familiar sound fills the small circle of light. It is the rhythmic, crisp scratch of the sharpened nib passing over the natural ridges of the woven papyrus fibers. The sound is incredibly steady, a soft, hypnotic friction that speaks of absolute focus and mental clarity. Each stroke of his pen is smooth and perfectly executed, the black ink flowing effortlessly from the hollow chamber of the reed into the thirsty, porous valleys of the paper. As the letters form one by one across the page, they create a continuous, elegant ribbon of dark text that stands out starkly against the pale ivory background under the amber glow of the lamp. You can hear the light, subtle click of the pen lifting at the end of each line, followed by the soft, dry sweep of his hand moving back to the start of the next row. This gentle acoustic rhythm acts as a powerful sedative for a tired mind. The repetitive, predictable sounds of the writing process provide a comforting anchor, drawing your awareness away from internal dialogues and external worries, leaving you with only the pure, soothing sensation of the scribe's craft. The air in the library remains perfectly still and dry, carrying that rich, multi-layered fragrance of cedar oil, burning olive oil, and ancient river reeds. It is a scent that immediately relaxes the nervous system, wrapping around your senses like a heavy, warm blanket, and guiding you into a state of deep, effortless tranquility as the peaceful Alexandrian night deepens around the estate. The scribe continues his meticulous work, completely absorbed in the steady, rhythmic dance of his reed pen across the fresh papyrus sheet. Column after column of elegant Greek characters begins to fill the empty space, transforming the blank river plant into a permanent monument of human thought. The small ceramic oil lamp burns with a constant, unmoving amber flame, casting long, dramatic shadows that stretch outward from the corners of the cedar desk and melt into the vast, velvety darkness of the room. The absolute silence of the library deepens with every passing minute, a thick and comforting quietude that seems to insulate this small circle of light from the entire rest of the universe. As the scribe writes, the only sound breaking the magnificent stillness is the soft, dry scratch of the sharpened reed passing over the textured grain of the papyrus. It is a comforting, rustic whisper, a gentle friction that occurs in perfect synchronicity with his slow, deep breathing. The repetitive cadence of the pen moving across the page acts like a soothing cradle for your consciousness, systematically dissolving any remaining knots of tension in your shoulders, your jaw, and your mind. The thick limestone walls of the estate continue to radiate a gentle, stable chill, a refreshing contrast to the warm, cozy glow of the olive oil lamp, creating a perfect sensory equilibrium that invites profound physical rest. The fragrance of the room evolves slightly as the fresh ink dries upon the page. The metallic, smoky aroma of the carbon soot and acacia gum is stronger now, rising softly from the written lines to blend with the nutty, sweet scent of the burning olive oil and the heavy, protective perfume of cedar oil that blankets the surrounding walls. This unique combination of scents carries an immense weight of security. It is the scent of preservation, of a sanctuary dedicated entirely to safety, quiet study, and the eternal continuity of knowledge. In this space, the worries of your daily life hold absolutely no weight or relevance. They are cast out beyond the massive stone gates of the estate, leaving you completely unburdened and free to simply exist in the present moment. The scribe reaches the bottom of the first column of text. He pauses, lifting his reed pen and setting it down gently within the carved groove of his cedar palette. The small, hollow wooden clatter settles quickly back into the overarching silence of the room. He leans back slightly in his high-backed chair, letting his hands rest flat on his thighs as he allows his eyes to rest, looking into the soft, comforting darkness beyond the desk. His chest rises and falls with a slow, meditative regularity that mirrors the unhurried, calm nature of the library itself. There is no clock ticking away the seconds, no deadline looming in the darkness, and no expectation of speed. Time in this sanctuary is fluid and vast, measured only by the steady consumption of oil in the lamp and the gradual filling of the papyrus page. Looking up into the high reaches of the room, the narrow windows are now dark portals showing the deep, star-studded sky of the Egyptian night. A faint, barely perceptible breath of cool night air slips through the stone openings, drifting down like a gentle caress to stir the air slightly before dissolving into the stable atmosphere of the room. The tiny dust motes, caught in the localized glow of the lamp, drift with a surreal, weightless slowness, mimicking the effortless relaxation that is spreading through your entire body. You are completely safe, perfectly hidden from the chaos of the world, and fully permitted to yield to the immense, heavy peace of this Alexandrian night as the scribe prepares to begin the next column of his timeless work. The scribe stretches his fingers with a slow, deliberate openness, feeling the smooth warmth of the cedar desk beneath his wrists before he reaches once more for his reed pen. The small amber flame of the ceramic oil lamp remains perfectly steady, a tiny beacon of light in the vast velvety ocean of darkness that has completely consumed the Great Library. Every corner of the private estate is locked in a state of profound, unyielding stillness, an absolute quiet that feels less like the absence of sound and more like a protective physical embrace. The heavy limestone walls, multiple feet thick, stand as an eternal barrier against the world outside, entirely isolating this desk from the passage of centuries and the anxieties of mortal life. He picks up his sharpened calamus, the light straw-colored reed balancing effortlessly between his thumb and fingers. He moves his hand toward the unglazed clay inkwell, dipping the angled nib into the rich, midnight black liquid with a motion so fluid it makes absolutely no sound. The heavy, comforting fragrance of the ink rises to meet him, a rustic blend of wood smoke, carbon soot, and the subtle sweetness of acacia gum. This scent mixes harmoniously with the clean, nutty aroma of the burning olive oil and the deep, resinous perfume of cedar oil that radiates from the wall niches, creating a sensory blanket that instantly settles your thoughts and coaxes your nervous system into a state of deep, effortless relaxation. He lowers the pen to the top of the second column on the fresh papyrus sheet, his left hand stabilizing the ivory-colored surface. As the reed meets the paper, the rhythmic, soothing scratch begins anew. The fine nib glides across the textured, cross-woven fibers of the dried Nile plant, creating a beautiful, comforting whisper that punctuates the absolute quiet of the room. The sound is incredibly uniform and steady, a testament to the scribe's complete mental clarity and relaxed state of being. Each stroke of the pen leaves behind a clean, glossy trail of dark text that quickly sinks into the porous valleys of the paper, drying into a permanent, matted black statement of ancient wisdom. The simple, repetitive cadence of the writing process, the crisp friction of the reed, the subtle lift of the pen, and the soft intake of the scribe's breath acts as a powerful hypnotic anchor for your mind. If you find yourself deeply comforted by the unshakable peace and security of this ancient Alexandrian sanctuary, please take a brief moment to support our channel by clicking the like button, subscribing, and leaving a kind comment below to let us know what part of this journey brings you the most rest. Your continuous support helps us weave these tranquil historical escapes for your nightly comfort. The scribe continues his evening transcription, his hand moving with a calm, unhurried precision that completely ignores the concept of deadlines or haste. In this room, there is no pressure, no distraction, and no external demand on your attention. You are entirely permitted to let go of your worries, to allow your breathing to synchronize with the slow, rhythmic scratch of the pen, and to drift down into a state of profound restorative rest. The library remains an oasis of absolute safety, a timeless chamber where the chaotic flow of human history has ceased to exist, leaving you wrapped in a heavy, warm blanket of ultimate tranquility as the deep Egyptian night folds gently over the estate. The scribe lifts his pen slightly to inspect the newly completed lines, his gaze steady and untroubled under the warm, protective aura of the olive oil lamp. The deep midnight black ink glistens faintly in the amber glow before the dry, porous channels of the papyrus slowly absorb the moisture, anchoring the elegant letters into the very fabric of the river reed. The absolute stillness of the private library remains unbroken, a comforting and heavy quietude that fills every cubic inch of the grand stone hall. The massive, thick walls of whitewashed limestone continue to perform their silent duty, keeping the interior environment delightfully cool, dry, and entirely shielded from the vast, humid expanse of the coastal Egyptian night outside. He reaches for his wooden palette to select a wider reed pen, planning to draw a decorative, clean borderline beneath the completed section of the philosophical text. The small, hollow wooden click of the pen settling into his fingers is a solitary note of sound that quickly dissolves into the vast silence of the sanctuary. The air within the library carries a profound sense of permanence. It is a space where the frantic rushing of the outside world is revealed to be a mere illusion, completely irrelevant to the timeless preservation of human wisdom. As you sit in the deep, comforting shadows of this estate, you can feel your thoughts slowing down, aligning effortlessly with the slow, deliberate, and mindful movements of the old scholar at his cedar desk. He dips the wider nib into the clay inkwell, the thick liquid clinging perfectly to the sliced channel of the marsh reed. The familiar earthy aroma of wood smoke and gum arabic drifts upward, reinforcing the grounding atmosphere that blankets the entire workspace. He stabilizes the lower margin of the papyrus with his left hand, feeling the unique rustic texture of the cross-woven fibers beneath his fingertips. With a slow, continuous pull of his arm, he moves the pen horizontally across the sheet. The sound produced is a deeper, resonance-filled scratch, a low, smooth whisper that sings of craftsmanship, patience, and absolute focus. The line stretches perfectly from margin to margin, a bold anchor that elegantly frames the columns of text above it. The scribe lifts the pen with a gentle rolling motion of his wrist, ensuring that no stray droplets of ink mar the pristine ivory surface of the paper. He sets the instrument down and leans back into the dark wood of his high-backed chair, closing his eyes to let the rich silence of the library wash over his senses. The complete absence of noise in the private library is a luxurious therapeutic blanket that wraps around your mind, easing away the residual tensions of the modern world and replacing them with a profound sense of ultimate safety and untroubled rest. Looking toward the high ceiling, the deep purple shadows of the evening have turned into an absolute velvety blackness that makes the room feel completely boundless. The small ceramic lamp remains the sole center of light and warmth, its tiny flame burning with a quiet, unmoving fidelity that symbolizes the unshakable endurance of this hidden sanctuary. There are no sudden noises to startle you, no urgent tasks waiting to be finished, and no expectations to fulfill. You are completely protected within these thick stone walls, invited to breathe deeply, let go of the day, and sink deeper into a state of effortless, beautiful relaxation as the timeless Alexandrian night carries you away. The scribe remains in his chair for a long, quiet interval, his eyes closed as he enjoys the total stillness of the hour. His breathing is steady and deep, a gentle cadence that merges with the profound silence of the library. Outside, the Mediterranean might be restless, but here the air is stagnant in the most comforting way possible, held in a perfect, cool equilibrium by the massive limestone masonry. You can feel the weight of the silence, not as an absence, but as a presence, a thick, velvet-like substance that supports you and holds you fast. The room is a vessel, a sealed treasure chest of human thought, and you are tucked safely within its deepest, most protected corner. He opens his eyes, not with a start, but with a gradual, calm clarity. His gaze wanders toward the shelves that line the western wall where hundreds of other scrolls rest in their dark cedar cradles. Even in the darkness, you can sense their presence, the collective wisdom of philosophers, poets, and scientists whose works have been sheltered here for generations. The air around the shelves is saturated with the scent of cedar oil, a sharp, resinous, and deeply restorative aroma that clarifies the mind and relaxes the body. It is the smell of endurance, of something that refuses to decay despite the march of time. You are breathing in this same air, and with every breath you feel more disconnected from the noise of the modern world and more grounded in this quiet, ancient reality. The scribe reaches forward, his hands moving with the grace of a master, and shifts his attention to a fresh task, the careful cleaning and re-oiling of the cedar rollers of the scroll he intends to work on next. He pulls a small, soft cloth made of fine, unbleached linen from a drawer in his desk. He takes a tiny glass vial filled with a clear, fragrant cedar oil distilled from the mountains of Lebanon. He dabs a minute amount onto the cloth. The scent is instantaneous, a sharp, clean blast of the forest that cuts through the stillness and cleanses the air. He begins to rub the cloth over the wooden dowel, the sound a faint, rhythmic friction that is deeply soothing. He applies the oil with a light, sweeping touch, ensuring that every inch of the wood is conditioned, preventing it from drying out or becoming brittle in the dry Alexandrian climate. The cloth moves with a hypnotic regularity, a repetitive motion that seems to slow time itself. As he works, the wood begins to gleam in the amber light of the oil lamp, taking on a rich, lustrous glow. The act is one of profound care, a demonstration of the respect he holds for these physical vessels of knowledge. As you watch, or perhaps just imagine, his steady, deliberate movements, you feel your own tension melting away. The repetitive nature of the task is a lullaby, a quiet, physical prayer of maintenance and protection that ensures the safety of the library for years to come. He sets the cloth aside and picks up the wooden dowel, holding it between his hands and rotating it slowly, feeling the smooth, oiled surface. It is cool and firm, a solid piece of history. He sets it back on the desk, the soft sound of wood against wood once again punctuating the room's deep, quiet sanctuary. There is no urgency in his work. The night is long and the library is patient. You too can afford to be patient. You have nowhere to be and nothing to rush toward. The world can wait. Within these thick walls, the only thing that matters is the preservation of peace, the careful tending to the old, and the slow rhythmic breathing of the night. You are held by this place, cocooned in its shadows, allowed to release every lingering thought until nothing remains but the quiet sensation of existing entirely at rest, in the heart of a city that never stops, but in this room will never wake. The scribe gently places the freshly oiled cedar roller back into its position on the desk, its surface catching the warm, steady flicker of the olive oil lamp. He leans back, his posture relaxed, and lets out a slow, contented breath that seems to ripple through the profound silence of the room. The library is a sanctuary of absolute stillness, a place where the passage of time is measured not by the turning of the sun, but by the quiet, intentional movements of preservation. The air is perfectly balanced, cool from the massive limestone walls, yet intimate and warm within the small circle of light cast by the lotus-shaped lamp. Every sense you possess is focused on the immediate, tangible reality of this room, the grounding scent of cedar, the metallic tang of ink, and the comforting rhythmic peace that radiates from the scribe's steady presence. He reaches for a small, shallow bowl containing a mixture of finely ground minerals used for pigments, deep ochre, vibrant lapis lazuli, and burnt umber, all waiting to be mixed into the next manuscript's illumination. He does not rush to begin this more artistic endeavor. He simply admires the colors, letting his eyes linger on the rich textures and the way the amber light dances across the small piles of powder. In this environment, appreciation of the material is just as important as the act of creation. The library teaches patience through the very nature of its contents. Every scroll, every inkwell, and every cedar shelf has been carefully selected and maintained to resist the entropic pull of the outside world. You can feel this resistance in the atmosphere. It is an impenetrable layer of calm that holds you safely, preventing the chaotic energies of the modern era from reaching your mind. You notice how the scribe handles his tools with a reverence that borders on the sacred. When he moves a brush, he does so with a delicate, gliding motion, barely touching the surface, as if he is afraid of bruising the air itself. This level of mindfulness is deeply infectious. By watching him or simply imagining the soft, fluid movements of his hands, your own awareness becomes refined and quieted. The erratic impulses of your thoughts, which usually dart from worry to plan to memory, begin to settle. They align with the scribe's pace, smoothing out into a single, continuous stream of calm consciousness. The library is a space for this kind of inner alignment, where the soul can detach from the noise of the external and reconnect with the quiet, foundational silence that exists within. The scribe selects a brush tipped with the finest sable fur, its bristles soft and pliable, perfectly suited for the intricate work of applying pigment to a parchment insert. He dips it into a small pool of clear, filtered water, the tiny, soft splash of the droplet hitting the liquid, a sound so pure it feels like it might be the only sound in the world. He then gently stirs it into the lapis lazuli pigment, creating a deep, celestial blue paste. The process is hypnotic. The mixing is a slow, circular dance of color and moisture, a quiet meditation that fills the heart of the library with a sense of purposeful, rhythmic beauty. As the pigment transforms, so too does the atmosphere, feeling heavier, more grounded, and infinitely more tranquil. There is no rush to finish the illumination. The night is a vast open expanse, and the library is prepared to host this labor for as long as it takes. You are a guest in this timeless space, a witness to the profound, enduring power of human focus. There is no one to impress, no deadline to meet, and no pressure to perform. You are simply here, in the dim, cool light of the oil lamp, surrounded by the wisdom of centuries, completely shielded by walls of stone that have seen civilizations rise and fall while remaining perfectly, stubbornly unchanged. You are safe in this quietude. You are held in this stillness. As the scribe begins to apply the first delicate stroke of blue to the page, you feel your consciousness drifting downward, deeper into the dark, comforting pool of relaxation, leaving behind the weight of the day and allowing yourself to be entirely, blissfully at rest. The delicate sable brush, now laden with the rich celestial blue of the lapis lazuli, hovers just above the surface of the parchment insert. The scribe is perfectly still, his breathing so shallow and measured that he seems almost like a statue carved from the very stone that forms the foundation of the library. The amber light of the oil lamp illuminates the microscopic dust particles floating in the air, creating a serene, golden haze that surrounds the desk. This stillness is not empty. It is a heavy, concentrated substance, a physical manifestation of total focus. As the brush finally meets the parchment, the contact is so subtle it produces no sound, only the faint, graceful glide of fibers moving across a smooth plane. The blue pigment flows with a life of its own, an intense, brilliant streak of color that anchors itself to the page, representing the vastness of the heavens captured in the miniature palm of a scholar's hand. You watch the scribe's hand or feel the rhythm of his movement in your mind as he creates a complex geometric pattern at the beginning of the text. Each line is an act of total surrender to the moment. He does not think about the finished product, he thinks only of the line he is currently drawing. This, too, is a lesson the library offers, that peace is not found at the end of a long, arduous journey, but in the deliberate, quiet performance of the task directly in front of you. By centering your attention on his movements, you find your own internal monologue quieting. The scattered fragments of your day-to-day life, the lingering anxieties, the half-formed plans all begin to dissipate, replaced by the simple grounding reality of the ink, the parchment, and the golden glow of the lamp. The atmosphere in the room remains impeccably balanced. The limestone walls provide a cooling, stable foundation, a massive thermal battery that locks the interior in a perpetual state of comfort, entirely immune to the fluctuations of the desert winds outside. The scent of the room is now a complex tapestry of fragrances: the sharp, grounding cedar oil, the sweet, nutty olive oil, the earthy lapis pigment, and the clean, metallic tang of the ink. It is a scent that feels ancient and permanent, a smell that has remained unchanged in this corner of Alexandria for years, and one that feels like it will persist long after you have moved on. It is a scent of safety. Within these walls, you are not a participant in the chaotic, grinding machinery of the world. You are a protected observer, a guest in a realm of timeless stillness. The scribe lifts his brush, cleans it in the clear water, and sets it aside on the cedar pallet with a grace that suggests he has done this 10,000 times. He takes a piece of fine, soft wool and gently blots the excess moisture from the illumination. The sound is a soft, muffled press, a quiet thump that is entirely swallowed by the vast, deep silence of the library. He checks the work, his eyes narrowing slightly, not out of dissatisfaction, but out of a deep, concentrated affection for the craft. The illumination is perfect, a small, radiant spark of color that will lift the spirits of whoever opens this scroll in the distant future. It is a gift of beauty from the present to the future, a bridge built of pigments and patience. He leans back again, the wood of his chair creaking almost imperceptibly as he shifts his weight. The sound is an intimate, comforting reminder of the physical reality of the room. He closes his eyes, not to sleep, but to visualize the next stage of the work, the intricate border that will surround the text. His face is entirely at peace, the muscles of his jaw, his forehead, and his cheeks completely slackened, expressing a level of rest that most people never truly achieve in their waking lives. In this state of total composure, he is entirely content. And so too are you. The weight of the world, if it ever existed at all, has been left at the door. Here, in the heart of Alexandria, there is nothing but the slow rhythmic pulse of the night, the amber glow of the lamp, and the profound healing stillness that makes every breath feel like a gift. You are safe, you are at peace, you are held. The scribe's meditative pause concludes with the slow, deliberate opening of his eyes. He looks down at the parchment insert, where the fresh lapis lazuli illumination now dries in the amber light. The pigment is vibrant, a startling contrast against the ivory tones of the papyrus. He reaches for a fine-tipped golden stylus, a tool used to outline the delicate border of the illumination with a subtle reflective shimmer. The metal catches the lamp's glow, casting a tiny dancing spark onto the surrounding wall of books. The movement of his hand is steady, a rhythmic, flowing motion that seems to defy the very nature of human effort. He traces the contours of the blue pigment, and the golden lines emerge with effortless precision. Each stroke is a whispered secret between the scribe and his craft, a quiet declaration of order in an unpredictable world. As he works, the library seems to deepen in its tranquility. The transition from active painting to detailed decorative work requires a change in his posture. He leans closer to the desk, his head tilted slightly, his entire form focused on the tiny golden world he is creating. You can see the reflection of the oil lamp in his eyes, a tiny, unwavering star. This intense focus is not stressful. On the contrary, it is deeply calming. It is the absolute opposite of the scattered, frantic energy of the marketplace. Here, everything is intentional. Everything is controlled. Everything has a purpose. By aligning your own focus with his, you feel your internal chaos settling. The rapid, unbidden thoughts that usually occupy your mind are replaced by the simple, singular visual of the golden stylus moving across the page. The library's acoustics are a marvel of ancient engineering. The massive stone walls act as a sound-dampening chamber, capturing any stray noise, the settling of the desk, the faint pop of a bubble in the oil lamp, the shift of a page, and absorbing it instantly into the thick limestone depth. The silence is profound. It feels like a physical weight, a soft, heavy blanket that covers you from head to toe. It is the silence of a tomb, but without the coldness. It is the silence of a sanctuary, where life is not ended, but preserved. Within this quiet, your senses sharpen, yet they also soften. You notice the subtle nuances of the room, the way the cedar oil scent seems to change as the lamp burns lower, the way the shadows in the room seem to pulse in time with your own steady, slow heartbeat. The scribe finishes the golden outline and sets the stylus aside. The metallic click of the tool against the cedar desk is like a heartbeat in the void, crisp, clean, and entirely sufficient. He takes a moment to breathe, a long, deep inhalation that seems to draw the very essence of the library into his lungs. The air is cool, dry, and clean, free of the dust and pollutants that clutter the air of the outside world. It is the breath of antiquity, a pure foundational substance that sustains the mind and calms the spirit. You follow his example, drawing a long, slow breath into your own chest, feeling the coolness fill your lungs, feeling the tension evaporate from your shoulders and your neck. You are sinking deeper into the wood of your chair, your limbs feeling heavy, warm, and entirely supported by the environment. The night is moving into its deepest phase. The city of Alexandria is now hushed, the grand harbour quieted by the hour, the sailors long since asleep in their berths. In this private estate, the sense of time has completely dissolved. There is no tomorrow to prepare for, no yesterday to regret. There is only this room, this desk, this lamp, and the profound, healing stillness that binds everything together. The scribe's presence is a steady, reassuring constant. He is a guardian of the quiet, a sentinel of the written word, and in his company you are shielded from all harm. You are in the safest place in the ancient world, held in the amber glow of a light that will never go out, at peace in a silence that will never end. The scribe rises from his chair with a slow, fluid grace, his movements unencumbered by any hurry or physical stiffness. He walks toward the far wall where a small earthenware vessel of cool spring water sits on a stone ledge. The movement is silent, his leather-bound feet making no noise upon the polished, dark flagstones that cover the floor of the library. As he walks, the light from the oil lamp on his desk casts his shadow against the rows of wall niches, a giant, slow-moving silhouette that glides across the thousands of sleeping scrolls. The air in the room remains remarkably still, a testament to the heavy limestone masonry that effectively separates this inner sanctum from the outside world. He pours a small amount of water into a clay cup, the sound of the liquid hitting the ceramic surface, a sharp, clear note that rings out like a bell before being swallowed by the vast, deep quiet of the estate. He does not drink immediately. He stands there in the dim, golden light, looking out toward the narrow, high windows that define the character of the library. Through these slits, the darkness of the Egyptian night is absolute, a vast star-strewn canvas that arches over the entire Mediterranean. The sky is clear, and even from this distance you can sense the immense silent power of the cosmos, the same constellations that have been guiding sailors toward the Alexandrian harbour for centuries. Being here, in the presence of the scribe and the vast collection of human knowledge, you are reminded of your place in the continuum of time. It is a humble, grounding realization that brings a deep, quiet sense of relief. You are not required to hold up the world. You are simply a guest in its quietest corner, allowed to rest while the universe turns slowly, steadily, and without effort. He brings the cup to his lips and takes a slow, measured sip. The water is crisp and clean, chilled by the subterranean coolness of the storage room from which it was brought. As he drinks, his entire posture relaxes further, his shoulders dropping and his eyes softening. He is a man who understands that the preservation of his own peace is just as important as the preservation of the papyrus scrolls he guards. He turns back toward the desk, his movements still steady and entirely devoid of the jagged, chaotic energy that dominates the outside world. The room feels even more protected now, a fortress of tranquility where every action is a conscious choice, and every moment is an opportunity for stillness. You feel this same stillness settling into your bones, a heavy, warm comfort that makes it nearly impossible to keep your eyes open. He returns to his seat at the cedar desk, the chair creaking softly as he settles back into its familiar, comfortable embrace. He places the cup of water aside on the stone ledge, and then, with the same deliberate mindfulness, he returns his hands to the desk. He does not begin the next task immediately. He sits for a long moment, simply observing the small flame of the oil lamp. It is a hypnotic tiny sun, a golden beacon in the darkness that seems to focus the entire energy of the library into a single glowing point. The flame doesn't flicker, it burns with an intense, steady loyalty, fueled by the quality of the oil and the skill with which the wick was trimmed. It is a perfect metaphor for the scribe's own life, a steady, focused light that illuminates the shadows of history. As you continue to watch him, the boundaries between your own consciousness and the environment of the library begin to blur. The scent of the cedar oil, the cool, supportive weight of the limestone air, and the rhythmic, steady silence become a singular experience. You are no longer separate from this place. You are a part of the quiet, a participant in the deep, ancient rest that is being cultivated here. The scribe reaches for a new scroll, his hands moving toward the wooden dowel with a slow, reverent affection. There is nothing to worry about, there is nothing to do. You are safe in the company of the scholar, held within the amber glow of the lamp, entirely at home in the profound healing stillness of the Alexandrian night. The scribe reaches for the next scroll from the cedar niche, his fingers finding the familiar, cool texture of the wood before sliding the manuscript out with the practiced ease of a lifetime. The papyrus feels solid and weighty in his hands, a compact cylinder of historical memory that has waited years for this moment of attention. As he rests it on the dark, polished surface of his cedar desk, he handles it as if it were something living and breathing, a precious entity that requires nothing less than his full, unwavering presence. The room remains in a state of absolute heavy silence, a quiet so deep that it feels as if the very air has thickened, wrapping itself around the desk like a protective velvet shroud. If you are finding deep peace in this rhythmic journey through the library, I invite you to join our community by hitting the subscribe button and the like icon, as your support empowers us to continue creating these restorative historical sanctuaries for your nightly rest. He slowly unties the thin linen ribbon that holds the scroll shut, the sound of the knot giving way, a tiny, delicate friction that barely registers in the vast acoustic space of the hall. He begins to unroll the papyrus, the parchment speaking once more with that characteristic, crisp, dry whisper that seems to emanate from the very marrow of the reeds themselves. As the scroll opens, it releases a faint, trapped scent of ancient air, a smell of dried grass, dust from the upper Nile, and the long-lost sweetness of 1,000 years ago. It is a grounding, earthy aroma that immediately anchors you to this moment, sweeping away the last lingering echoes of your day and leaving you in a state of complete, unburdened presence. The scribe places the polished basalt weights on the corners, their solid, cold touch on the papyrus, ensuring that the manuscript stays open and flat under the soft, amber illumination of his oil lamp. He leans over the text, his eyes scanning the Greek script with a keen analytical intelligence that is softened by a profound respect for the author's work. The ink is dark, bold, and perfectly preserved, a testament to the skill of the original copyist who lived in a different century, under a different sun. The scribe's task is to verify the pagination and ensure that the margins are clean, a labor of love that serves as a quiet gatekeeping of knowledge. He works with a steady, unhurried pace, his hand never wavering, his focus entirely concentrated on the physical reality of the page. He is not merely reading, he is listening to the past, translating the silence of the ink into the presence of the present. As you observe his focus, you feel your own mind following suit, narrowing down until there is nothing left but the steady movement of his eyes and the soft glowing circle of light. The chaotic, sprawling world outside, the political machinations of the Roman Empire, the bustling commerce of the harbour, the endless shifting tides of human ambition simply ceases to exist. There is only the scholar, the scroll, and the profound healing stillness of the library. You are completely protected within these thick, whitewashed walls, shielded from all external pressure and allowed to surrender to a deep, transformative state of relaxation. He picks up a small, fine-bristled brush to gently remove a minute speck of dust from the edge of the papyrus. The motion is so light, so incredibly soft that it feels like a dream. Every action in this room is designed for the preservation of order and the promotion of quiet study. The scribe is a master of this environment, a guardian who knows that in order to protect knowledge, one must first protect the atmosphere in which it lives. By being here, you are participating in this same preservation. You are keeping your own mind quiet, guarding your own peace, and honoring the stillness that is your natural birthright. The lamp flickers once, a tiny golden pulse, and the shadows on the walls shift ever so slightly, but the library itself remains a steady, unshakable monument to the human need for reflection. You are safe, you are held, and you are drifting further into the vast, warm, and inviting darkness of the ancient night. The scribe leans back, his hands resting naturally on his lap, as he allows his eyes to travel the length of the open scroll. The text is dense, a complex treatise on the movement of celestial bodies, yet in this hour it serves as a source of immense calm rather than intellectual stimulation. The library, in its profound state of midnight silence, acts as an anchor for his thoughts, pulling him away from the abstract calculations of the stars and bringing him back to the solid, sensory reality of his desk. You can feel the stillness manifesting as a physical sensation, a gentle cooling pressure that settles over your brow and relaxes the muscles in your jaw. It is the peace of total isolation, the luxurious freedom of being somewhere where no human voice can reach you and no demand can penetrate the massive stone walls. He reaches for a small carved piece of pumice, a soft and porous stone used to gently burnish the edges of the papyrus that have begun to fray with age. The sound of the stone against the dry, brittle fibers is a micro-audible sensation, a delicate rasp that echoes the sound of wind over sand. It is a humble manual labor, the kind of task that requires total presence. He performs it with a patience that is almost religious in its intensity, understanding that the longevity of this scroll depends on these small, seemingly insignificant acts of maintenance. This is the essence of the library, a series of small, intentional motions that, when added together, preserve the sum total of human wisdom. As you watch him or simply hold the thought of his actions in your mind, you feel your own internal rhythm slowing, matching the deliberate, unhurried pace of his hands. The amber light from the oil lamp continues to serve as the heart of the room, a warm golden pulse that keeps the encroaching shadows of the deep night at bay. The air around the lamp is thick with the scent of burning olive oil, a clean, nutty fragrance that is bolstered by the omnipresent, resinous perfume of the cedar shelves. It is a comforting, protective atmosphere, a sensory environment that instantly signals to the nervous system that it is time to lower the guard, to release the day's burdens, and to sink into the deep restorative currents of sleep. The library is a womb of stone, a perfectly designed space where the passage of time is rendered meaningless, leaving you in a state of eternal, undisturbed present. He finishes the burnishing and sets the pumice aside, his eyes catching the sight of the open papyrus one final time before he begins the slow, rhythmic process of rolling it back up. The scroll moves with a soft sliding friction, the layers settling against one another like the pages of a well-worn book. He secures the end with the linen ribbon, tying it with a precision that speaks of long habit and a deep, abiding affection for the object. The scroll is then placed back into its cedar niche, the fit snug and secure, a perfect home for a document that will likely outlive everyone currently walking the streets of Alexandria. The act of returning the scroll to its place is a moment of closure, a quiet period at the end of a long, thoughtful sentence. You are witnessing the end of an era of study, a transition from the labor of the day to the rest of the night. The scribe sits at his desk for a few moments more, not moving, not thinking, just existing in the quiet wake of his work. He is perfectly at home in the silence, and so are you. The weight of the world is distant, irrelevant, and unreachable. There is only the cool stone, the warm lamplight, and the promise of a night that is deep, dark, and utterly peaceful. You feel your consciousness expanding, becoming as vast and quiet as the library itself, letting go of all the small, sharp edges of your life until there is nothing left but the smooth, flowing sensation of being at rest. The night is yours. The library is your refuge, and you are entirely, safely, and blissfully asleep within the cradle of history. The scribe shifts in his seat, the subtle groan of the cedar chair's joints resonating with the quietude of the room. He remains seated, not because there is more to be done, but because he has entered that rare golden state where movement seems unnecessary, a disruption of the perfect harmony he has cultivated throughout the long, silent hours. The amber light of the oil lamp has dipped, the flame now smaller, casting long, ethereal shadows that dance slowly across the limestone walls. These shadows move with a hypnotic, rhythmic grace, as if they were the breathing of the room itself. You are held within this pulse, your own breath slowing to match the flickering, gentle rhythm of the light. The library, for all its immense cold stone, has become a place of profound warmth, a cocoon woven from thousands of years of human thought and the simple grounding act of preservation. He gazes at the desk, now cleared of all tools save for the lamp and the remaining unused sheets of fresh papyrus. The absence of clutter is itself a source of deep mental relief. In the outside world, life is often characterized by the accumulation of things, tasks, worries, physical objects, all competing for attention. Here the opposite is true. Existence is defined by the removal of such burdens. Each brush, each inkwell, each roll of parchment has its place, and the library functions with an efficiency that is entirely devoid of stress. You can feel this philosophy washing over you, a gentle tide that encourages you to let go of the need for control. There is nothing in this moment that requires your input. The scribe is watching over the library, and you are resting under his quiet, vigilant care. The scent of the room has shifted once more. The burning olive oil has taken on a slightly charred, woody undertone, a smell that is deeply primal and comforting. It blends with the residual aroma of the cedar wood and the faint, salty tang that occasionally drifts in from the Mediterranean, carried on the breeze that finds its way through the highest reaches of the ventilation shafts. It is a complex, layered scent that acts as a sensory anchor, keeping your awareness firmly rooted in the physical reality of the estate. You are not floating in a void, you are resting in a room, in a building, in a city, at a specific point in history, and that specificity is what makes this relaxation possible. You are grounded in the tangible, in the solid, and in the permanent. He leans forward, his hands resting on the edge of the cedar desk, feeling the cool, polished grain beneath his palms. He closes his eyes, and you feel the permission to do the same. This is the moment of final release, where the mental effort of observing, of tracking the scribe's actions, of maintaining the narrative, is allowed to dissolve completely. The story is not something you must follow, it is a landscape you're inhabiting, and you are free to wander its deepest, darkest corners until you find the rest you require. The scribe is a guide who asks for nothing, not even your attention. He is simply a presence, a steady, calm heartbeat in the dark, and in his company your own heart rate continues to drop, your muscles continue to melt, and your mind continues to drift away from the shore of waking thought into the deep, oceanic stillness of the unconscious. Outside the heavy limestone walls, the world continues its indifferent, chaotic cycle, but it cannot touch you. You are insulated by the thickness of the stone, by the antiquity of the books, and by the sheer, unyielding peace that has been built here. The oil in the lamp is reaching its final phase, the flame casting a soft, golden radiance that turns the air to honey. There is no darkness, only a warm, embracing dimness that invites you to lose yourself. As the scribe remains in his silent, meditative vigil, you find yourself finally completely slipping beneath the surface, wrapped in the protective silence of Alexandria, held by the ancient, steady hands of the guardian, and ushered into a sleep that is as deep as dark, sand as peaceful as the history that surrounds you. The scribe finally reaches out to the small ceramic lamp, his movements slow and deliberate as he prepares to extinguish the flame. He does not rush the motion, he respects the transition, just as he respects the work he has completed and the peace he has maintained. He pinches the wick between his thumb and forefinger, or perhaps uses a small bronze snuffer, and with a soft final hiss the amber light vanishes, replaced immediately by the deep, enveloping darkness of the library. Yet even in the absence of the flame you do not feel a sense of loss or fear. Instead, the darkness feels like a soft, heavy blanket being lowered over the room, a protective veil that signals the absolute end of all obligations. The silence becomes total, a perfect velvet void where your breath seems to be the only thing that exists. You are perfectly safe in this dark, supported by the ancient limestone floor and the massive, unmoving walls that have watched over this sanctuary for centuries. As the afterimage of the flame fades from your vision, your other senses heighten. You become acutely aware of the coolness of the air, the refreshing, crisp temperature that the stone holds throughout the night. It feels like clean mountain water against your skin, soothing and revitalizing. The scent of the room is now pure, the lingering, resinous memory of the cedarwood, the faint metallic whisper of the inkwells, and the very essence of the papyrus itself. It is a clean, honest smell, devoid of any modern intrusion. There is no city noise, no flickering lights from the world outside, no hum of technology. There is only the stillness of the library and the quiet, rhythmic pulse of the sleeping building. You are in the heart of Alexandria, yet you feel as though you are in the heart of a calm, silent, and ageless space that exists outside of time. The scribe rises from his chair, the sound of his shifting robes a soft rustle against the silence. He moves through the darkness with an intimate knowledge of the space, his feet finding the familiar path between the shelves. He is heading toward the heavy wooden door that leads to his private sleeping quarters, but he does not leave you behind. His presence remains in the room, a guardian spirit who has ensured that everything is in its place and that the sanctuary is secure. You are left alone with the shadows, but you are not lonely. The room is filled with the presence of 1,000 voices, the authors of the scrolls, all resting, all silent, all providing a sense of collective deep repose. You are surrounded by the wisdom of the world, and in that company there is nothing to fear. Your body feels entirely weightless, as if the heavy air of the library has lifted the burden of your physical form. You feel yourself drifting not toward anywhere in particular, but simply downward into a state of profound, restorative rest. The worries that may have occupied your mind earlier, the deadlines, the small irritations, the persistent nagging anxieties have all been erased by the darkness. They no longer exist in this space. They could not survive in the face of such ancient, unyielding peace. You are being lulled by the silence, by the steady, cool temperature of the room, and by the knowledge that everything is being taken care of. The scribe has done his work, the library is at rest, and you have nothing left to do but surrender. The transition from wakefulness to sleep is a seamless, liquid motion. There is no border you must cross, no threshold you must struggle to pass. You are simply flowing like a river finding the ocean into the quiet, dark heart of the night. The memory of the library, the rows of scrolls, the cedar desks, the cool stone, the dedicated scholar becomes a warm, luminous dream that anchors you in your rest. You are floating in the stillness, held by the ancient architecture, calmed by the history that breathes through the walls. As you descend further into the deep, dark, and silent reaches of the night, you feel a final, profound sense of gratitude. The world is at peace, the library is at peace, and you, at long last, are completely, undeniably at peace. You are asleep, wrapped in the protective, eternal embrace of the ancient world. The darkness within the library is absolute, yet it possesses a texture and a weight that feels strangely familiar and deeply comforting. As the last embers of the oil lamp's heat dissipate into the cool air of the sanctuary, the transition to total rest becomes complete. You are no longer merely sitting or imagining the room. You are suspended in the very atmosphere of the ancient structure, a space where time has surrendered its authority to the enduring power of silence. The heavy limestone walls, which have stood as silent witnesses to the rise and fall of countless dynasties, seem to hum with a low, imperceptible vibration, the collective frequency of centuries of undisturbed thought. This, you realize, is the true secret of the estate. It is not just a place where scrolls are kept, but a place where the concept of becoming has been replaced by the finality of being. In this deep, velvet shadow, your consciousness begins to fragment in the most peaceful way possible. You feel your awareness drifting away from the edges of your physical form, expanding outward to touch the cool, smooth surfaces of the cedar shelves, the rough, ancient grain of the papyrus, and the solid, unyielding floor beneath. Every boundary that usually defines you, your name, your history, your expectations, dissolves into the surrounding quietude. You're becoming part of the library's eternal architecture. The stillness is not a void, it is a presence, an invisible supportive medium that holds you in a state of suspended animation. Any lingering thought of the modern world feels like a distant, faded echo, a dream from a life you once lived but which no longer has any claim upon your attention. The scribe, having retired to his chambers, leaves behind a legacy of perfect order. Every tool has been cleaned, every scroll returned to its cradle, every inkwell sealed. This intentional, meticulous care has created a vacuum of peace into which you are now effortlessly falling. There is no need for your mind to be alert, for there is nothing here that requires vigilance. The library is a fortress, and you are the honored guest, protected by the very silence that fills its halls. As you sink deeper, you can almost perceive the slow, rhythmic breathing of the history stored here, a vast collective exhalation that matches your own, pulling you further down into the depths of a profound restorative sleep that promises to wash away every trace of fatigue from your soul. You find yourself drifting through a mental landscape rendered in shades of silver and deep indigo, the colors of a desert night under a full moon. The memories of the library, the scent of the cedar oil, the crisp, dry scratch of the reed pen, the gentle amber glow of the lamp, transform into abstract sensations of warmth and safety. You are no longer observing these things. You are experiencing them as the building blocks of your current state of rest. The cool stone of the floor becomes a foundation for your dreams, while the smell of the papyrus becomes the air you breathe in this inner world. Everything is calm, everything is balanced, and everything is exactly as it should be. The urgency that once drove you has vanished, replaced by a slow, fluid contentment that feels like a homecoming. As the night deepens, the silence takes on a melodic quality, a frequency of peace that resonates within the very marrow of your bones. There is no longer any separation between you and the library. You are the stillness, you are the shadow, and you are the quiet, eternal endurance of the stone. Every breath you take is a testament to the safety of this place, a quiet affirmation that you are exactly where you need to be. You are floating in the heart of Alexandria, yet you are beyond all geography, tucked away in a sanctuary that transcends the boundaries of the waking world. There is no tomorrow to wake up for, only this infinite golden moment of rest as you drift further into the dark, silent reaches of an eternal, ancient night. The silence of the library has matured into a profound, heavy slumber that seems to emanate from the very foundations of the earth beneath the estate. In the total darkness, the air has grown even more still, as if the room itself is holding its breath in anticipation of a rest that has no end. You are suspended in this dark estate of existence where the distinction between your own physical body and the ancient structure has vanished entirely. You have become one with the limestone, one with the cedar, and one with the thousands of silent scrolls that line the walls. Every molecule of your being is vibrating at the same frequency as the history that surrounds you, a frequency of absolute, unwavering tranquility. The world beyond these walls, the chaotic, shifting, and noisy world, has not only been forgotten, it has ceased to have any relevance to the reality you now inhabit. In this deep oceanic quiet, the passage of time is no longer measured by seconds or hours, but by the slow, rhythmic pulses of your own heart, which have slowed to a near-dormant pace. You are experiencing the kind of rest that the ancients understood, a total surrender to the stillness of the night. Your mind, once a labyrinth of complex thoughts and responsibilities, is now a wide, empty plain under a starlit sky. There is no desire to fill this space, no need to navigate it, and no ambition to build anything upon it. You are simply content to be a witness to the profound healing power of complete non-action. The very concept of effort feels like a memory from a dream, an abstract and meaningless idea that has no place in this sanctified dark. The scent of the library has also undergone a change, becoming an ethereal, almost spectral presence. The sharp, resinous notes of the cedar have softened, merging with the cool, damp mineral aroma of the limestone, creating an atmosphere that feels as old as the Nile itself. This scent is a lullaby, a sensory trigger that whispers to your nervous system that you are safe, that you are protected, and that you have been granted permission to abandon all vigilance. You're not guarding anything, you're not waiting for anything, you're not moving toward anything. You are anchored by the gravity of the library, held firmly in its embrace, safe from the winds of change and the storms of history. Within this state, dreams begin to form, not as narrative stories but as textures and qualities of light. You see flashes of gold, the color of the scribe's oil lamp, dancing against the dark. You feel the tactile memory of the papyrus, the dry, fibrous, comforting grit of the ancient reeds pressed against your skin. You hear the phantom sound of a quill brushing against a scroll, a noise so delicate it is more like the falling of a feather than the action of a tool. These fragments of your journey through the library are the only landmarks in the vast, calm sea of your current experience. They act as anchors, keeping you tethered to this feeling of supreme, unshakable peace as you drift into the deepest reaches of the unconscious. As you remain in this blissful, suspended state, the feeling of gratitude becomes overwhelming. It is not a gratitude for any specific thing, but a general, pervasive sense of being alive in a moment of total grace. You are a part of a lineage of people who have sought throughout history to find this very state, a place where the noise of existence can be set aside, where the soul can catch its breath, and where the mind can finally truly let go. You have found that place here in the heart of the Alexandrian night, guarded by the scribe and preserved by the silence. There is no end to this rest, no morning to break the spell, only the infinite, dark, and perfectly peaceful continuation of your journey into the heart of silence. You are safe, you are home, you are finally perfectly asleep. The deep, resonant silence of the library now feels absolute, a thick and protective mantle that has completely silenced the very concept of the outside world. Within this dark, cooling sanctum, you find yourself existing in a state of pure, unadulterated presence, where the boundaries of the self have blurred into the ancient stoic permanence of the architecture. You are no longer merely a visitor. You have become a part of the library's eternal inventory, a consciousness resting among the scrolls and the cedar-lined alcoves. The air itself feels different here, possessing a weight and a depth that can only come from centuries of preserved stillness. It is a cool, crisp, and revitalizing medium that carries the faint, lingering essence of thousands of years of scholarship. And as you breathe it in, you feel your lungs expanding with the quiet authority of history itself. There is a profound, almost hypnotic beauty in this total absence of external input. Because the darkness is total, your mind has finally ceased the frantic, often futile labor of trying to process the visual information of the waking world. Instead, it has surrendered to the internal landscape of memory and sensation, where the images of the scribe's workspace, the gentle flicker of the lamp, the golden hue of the papyrus, the elegant steady motions of the reed pen, are now merely the building blocks of an infinite serene architecture. You are drifting through these mental structures with the grace of a phantom, moving effortlessly from one quiet hall to another, each space more tranquil and more inviting than the last. Every movement is fluid, every thought is muted, and every breath is a soft, rhythmic prayer of gratitude for the sanctuary you have found. The physical sensation of the environment is one of absolute support. You feel the cool, solid limestone beneath you, a floor that has been smoothed by the footsteps of generations, offering a foundation that is as immovable as the earth itself. The scent of the room, a complex layered perfume of cedar, dried Nile grass, and the faint, sweet memory of ancient honey is a constant grounding force that keeps your awareness firmly anchored in this moment. There is no anxiety here, no sense of urgency, and no awareness of time. Time, in fact, has lost all its meaning. You are existing in the long now, a duration that spans both the past and the future, a place where everything is finished, everything is secure, and everything is perfectly balanced. You feel a subtle shift in the atmosphere, a gentle pulsing energy that seems to flow through the walls of the library. It is the life force of the knowledge stored within, a quiet, humming vitality that pulses in time with your own slowing heart rate. This connection is not intellectual. It is deeply, fundamentally somatic. You are feeling the weight of thousands of lifetimes of thought, not as a burden, but as a stabilizing force, a bedrock upon which your own consciousness can finally rest. The confusion and the noise of the modern life, which typically claw at the edges of your perception, have been completely walled off by the thickness of the stone and the depth of the night. You are immune to the distractions of the world, shielded by the sanctity of this place, and permitted to inhabit the core of your own silence. As you sink into the final, deepest layer of this restorative experience, you realize that this library is not just a building, it is a state of mind that you can carry with you, a mental geography you have mapped and can return to whenever the world becomes too loud. But for now, you do not need to go anywhere. You are perfectly placed. The scribe has finished his tasks, the scrolls are tucked safely into their cradles, and the night has reached its pinnacle of peace. You are being held by the architecture, nurtured by the stillness, and ushered into a state of sleep so deep and so profound that it feels like returning to the very origin of your being. The darkness is not a frightening thing. It is a welcoming, infinite expanse of potential, a canvas upon which your dreams of tranquility can be painted. You are entirely at rest, a part of the grand, quiet continuum of history, and in this eternal, ancient night, you have finally found the total, unshakable peace you have been seeking. The absolute stillness of the library reaches a level of depth that transcends mere silence, evolving into a palpable living presence. You are floating within this sanctuary of shadow, where the very atmosphere feels as if it was spun from the finest, softest silk. The darkness is no longer just the absence of light. It has become a sanctuary in its own right, a cool, dark ocean that supports you with an effortless, buoyant grace. Every lingering tension, every subtle contraction of muscle, and every faint, residual thought has been smoothed away by the sheer weight of the centuries that surround you. You are existing in a pocket of reality where the frantic, jagged edges of time have been sanded down to a perfect, frictionless surface. The library breathes with you, a slow, deep, rhythmic expansion and contraction of stone and history, and you find your own pulse synchronizing with this grand, ancient metabolism. The scent that fills this dark space is now singular and crystalline, a pure distillation of aged cedar, faint echoes of dried papyrus, and the cool mineral sharpness of the limestone foundation. It is a fragrance that cleanses the mind, washing away the complex, cluttered patterns of daily life and leaving behind a pristine, open expanse. In this clarity, you find you can perceive the history of the library not through logic or study, but through a direct, intuitive resonance. You feel the presence of the thousands of scrolls, each one a trapped spark of human consciousness, resting in the quiet, undisturbed dark. They are not merely objects, they are waiting, they are breathing, and in this communal silence, they are offering you their collective calm. You are held in a warm, protective embrace by the combined wisdom of ages, and the feeling is one of supreme safety. You are moving through a dream that is layered with the sensory richness of the library, yet it is stripped of all complexity. You feel the phantom sensation of a smooth, cool stone floor beneath your feet, the soft resistance of a heavy linen curtain that separates one chamber from the next, and the distant, imagined warmth of the oil lamp that has now been extinguished. These sensations are more real than the world you left behind. They are the artifacts of a life lived in harmony with the environment, a life of simple, focused intent. There is no anxiety about what the next day will bring, because in this space there is no next day. There is only this cycle of quiet, this eternal rhythmic turning of the night, and you are its only inhabitant, its silent guest and its protected ward. Your mind, so often tasked with managing the turbulence of the waking world, has completely retired from its duties. It has set aside its tools, closed its ledgers, and left the desk of your consciousness clean and bare. You are free from the obligation of memory, free from the labor of foresight, and free from the weight of identity. You are simply a center of awareness, a point of light floating in a vast, dark, and perfectly peaceful sea. This is the ultimate gift of the library, the ability to become nothing, so that you may truly rest. You are a ghost within the machine of history, a whisper within the roar of time, and in this state you are entirely untouchable. No sorrow can find you here. No worry can penetrate the walls of this deep stone womb. As you drift, the silence begins to hum, a low musical vibration that resonates in your chest, a harmonic of all the prayers, philosophies, and poems that have been whispered within these walls for thousands of years. It is a song of pure existence, a lullaby that knows no words and requires no understanding. You are losing yourself in this melody, feeling your awareness expand beyond the walls of the estate out into the vast, dark expanse of the Mediterranean night, where the sea meets the sky in a seamless obsidian horizon. You are the sea, you are the sky, and you are the stone. You are everything, and in being everything you are finally blissfully and completely at peace. The journey has come to its natural quiet end, and you are descending into the profound, dark, and infinite calm of a sleep that will last as long as the stars remain in the sky. The profound silence of the library has expanded to encompass the entirety of your perception, creating a vacuum where only the most essential aspects of existence remain. You are no longer floating, you are anchored, fused with the very bedrock upon which the great city of Alexandria was built. The darkness is absolute, yet it possesses a luminous quality, as if the knowledge contained within the thousands of scrolls has permeated the very shadows, turning them into a comforting, protective medium. Each breath you take is drawn from an atmosphere saturated with the memory of ancient forests and the pristine, unpolluted air of a world that existed long before the current age of noise and acceleration. You are nestled in the core of a sanctuary that has defied the erosion of time, and within this stillness you feel your spirit unclench, releasing the final lingering knots of anxiety that have long defined your waking hours. There is a tactile reality to this darkness that defies explanation. You can sense the immense, cool limestone walls, their mass providing a sense of stability that is entirely external to your own consciousness. They are the guardians of your peace, a physical manifestation of the boundary between the chaos of the world and the tranquility of the mind. As you drift, you find that your awareness is no longer bounded by your skin. It is porous, leaking into the space around you, blending with the cool air, the rough-hewn shelves, and the silent, sleeping manuscripts. You are the library, and the library is you. Every shelf is a rib, every corridor a pathway through the architecture of your own calm. This total synthesis with your surroundings is the ultimate form of rest, an erasure of the self that allows for total, unbridled renewal. Within the deep internal theatre of your mind, images continue to pass in slow, majestic procession. They are not memories, but rather archetypal scenes of order and grace. A hand placing a reed pen upon a desk, the slow downward drip of a water clock, the precise mathematical alignment of stars viewed through a temple roof. Each image arrives with a sense of immense significance, yet demands no analysis or reaction. They simply exist, shimmering in the void of your consciousness like stars in a night sky. You are merely the observer, a silent participant in the dream of history. The absence of demand, the lack of any requirement to do, to be or to feel is the most luxurious sensation you have ever known. It is the peace of the desert at midnight, the stillness of the ocean at its lowest ebb. The scent of cedarwood has become the baseline of your existence, a steady, woody, and intensely grounding fragrance that seems to act as a tether, holding you safely within the library while your spirit wanders through the vast, dark halls of the subconscious. It is a smell that promises endurance and protection, a sensory signal that informs your nervous system that it is impossible for any harm to reach you here. Behind this foundation of cedar, there are deeper, more subtle notes, the dust of millennia, the faint, sweet trace of dried resin, and the cooling influence of the subterranean depths. These fragrances are the map of your journey, guiding you deeper into the dark, welcoming recesses of a rest so profound that it feels like returning to a state of pre-existence, a time before the burdens of identity were ever imposed upon you. As you slip further into the velvet depths of this rest, the silence begins to acquire a physical density. It is as if you are being wrapped in a thick, warm blanket that muffles the very concept of the future and the past. You are living entirely in the present, a vertical slice of time that is infinite in its depth and calm. The heartbeat of the city outside, the distant rhythmic washing of the Mediterranean tide, has faded to an imperceptible whisper, a mere phantom sensation. You are completely detached from the gears of the world, a stationary point in a universe of infinite, peaceful expansion. The journey into the heart of the library is complete. You have reached the center, the point of absolute stillness, and here, wrapped in the cool embrace of stone and shadow, you abandon the last fragile thread of waking consciousness, surrendering entirely to the deep, dark, and eternal calm of the ancient night. The density of the silence within the library has reached an equilibrium that feels almost solid, a medium in which your consciousness can float with total, weightless abandonment. In this deep, velvet darkness, every sensory experience has been distilled to its most potent grounding essence. The cool air against your skin, the scent of aged cedar that seems to emanate from the very stone walls, the absence of any demand, all these factors coalesce into a state of existence that is profoundly, undeniably restorative. You are resting in a space that has been engineered by time and neglect to be the most tranquil environment in the ancient world, a place where the clamor of human life is silenced by the sheer unyielding permanence of history. Your perception has become vast and circular, mirroring the great slow rotations of the heavens that the scholars of this place once mapped with such devotion. You find yourself drifting through the archives of your own mind, not as an active participant, but as a silent observer watching the settling of dust in a sun-drenched, quiet room. Thoughts that once felt like jagged, urgent obstacles have been rendered as soft, malleable shapes, sinking into the depths of your awareness until they disappear entirely. There is no urgency to resolve, no conflict to untangle, and no future to plan. You are existing in the absolute vertical now, a slice of reality that is infinite in its capacity for stillness. The sensation is one of total unconditional surrender, as if you have finally allowed yourself to let go of the invisible threads that held your ego in place. Within this expansive darkness, the memory of the scribe's meticulous care, his gentle handling of the papyrus, the precision of his ink, the slow meditative pace of his work, has become a foundational rhythm for your own inner life. You are replicating his calm, adopting his posture of reverence toward the small, the tangible, and the enduring. The library is not just a container for knowledge, it is a teacher of presence, and you are its most dedicated student. By simply remaining here, in the dark, you are learning the language of the stone, the grammar of the silence, and the vocabulary of the void. You are becoming fluent in the art of being, and as your fluency grows, the distance between your true self and the noise of the world becomes an insurmountable comforting divide. The scent that remains in the air, the cedar, the parchment, the trace of dried Nile minerals, has taken on a holy, almost transcendent quality. It is a fragrance that seems to act as a barrier, a sensory shield that keeps the distractions of the outside world from encroaching on your sanctuary. You find that you can pull this scent around you like a cloak, a protective insulating layer that keeps you warm in the cool subterranean temperature of the library. Behind this layer you are untouchable, you are safe. You are held in a cradle of stone and shadow that is as old as the myths of the gods, yet as immediate and tangible as the breath moving in and out of your lungs. As you sink into the final profound layer of this experience, the sense of your own physical presence fades into the background, becoming a mere reference point for the overwhelming peace that surrounds you. You are part of the building, a ghost of a guest, a temporary witness to the eternal rest of Alexandria. The transition to deep, restorative sleep is not a descent into nothingness, but a transcendence into everything. You are one with the library, one with the night, and one with the great, slow, and rhythmic turning of the world. There is no end to this peace, no dawn that can break the sanctity of this dark. You are lost in the beauty of the silence, a traveler who has reached the end of the road and found that the destination is simply the ability to remain perfectly and eternally at rest. The stillness within the grand library has become a weightless, oceanic expanse where the very air feels charged with the quietude of 1,000 years. You are drifting in this dark, a consciousness stripped of all secondary concern, floating through a vast interior landscape of stone and shadow. The limestone walls, which you can sense even in the absolute absence of light, provide a sense of fundamental, immovable support, grounding you in a reality that is far older than your own life. Every breath you take is a deliberate, rhythmic act that resonates with the deep, slow pulse of the library itself, a frequency that harmonizes with the very marrow of your being. This is the ultimate sanctuary, a place where the frenetic energy of the modern era is not merely blocked, but completely transmuted into a profound, healing silence that permeates every layer of your existence. Your awareness is no longer bounded by the limitations of your physical body. It is a diffuse, soft presence that fills the room, extending to the cold, polished shelves and the silent, sleeping scrolls. You feel the presence of the history kept here as a gentle, reassuring weight, a comforting anchor that prevents you from drifting away into total oblivion. Instead, you are being held in a state of suspended animation, a delicate, precious moment of absolute, undisturbed rest. There is no longer any separation between you and the environment. The stone is your skin, the cool air is your breath, and the profound, impenetrable darkness is your consciousness. You are part of the architecture of Alexandria, a silent, enduring facet of the library's eternal midnight life. In this deep internal space, the images that rise and fall are stripped of all urgency. You see the slow, fluid motion of a hand brushing dust from a mahogany table, the gentle amber glow of a lamp reflecting in a pool of ink, the rhythmic, soundless swaying of a curtain in a draught. These are not just memories, they are the fundamental building blocks of your current state of peace. They represent a life lived in perfect alignment with the present, an existence where the only goal is the maintenance of order and the preservation of calm. You feel this same alignment settling into your own spirit. The chaotic, jagged movements of your waking life have been replaced by this smooth, continuous flow, and the result is a clarity of mind that you have never before experienced. The fragrance of the room, that complex, layered bouquet of ancient cedar, dry, brittle papyrus, and the cool, earthy scent of the deep limestone foundations has become a constant protective shield. It acts as a sensory trigger, a signal to your nervous system that you're in a place where no harm can reach you. It is a fragrance of permanence, a smell that has survived the rise and fall of empires, and as you breathe it in, you feel your own anxieties dissolving into that same enduring expanse. You are protected, you are safe, and you are entirely at home in this darkness. The world outside, with its noise, its demands, and its endless shifting tides of ambition, has lost all meaning to you. It is a distant, pale echo that can no longer find the entrance to this sanctuary. As you slip further into the deep, dark, and final stage of your rest, the sense of time completely evaporates. There is no past to look back upon with regret, no future to anticipate with worry. You are anchored in a single, infinite, and blissful now. You are floating in the heart of the library, cradled by the architecture and nurtured by the silence, drifting down into a sleep so profound it feels like returning to the very origin of your being. The darkness is not a void, it is a living, breathing, and protective presence that welcomes you home. You are finally, perfectly, and unchangeably at peace, a silent voyager in the ancient golden night, at rest within the cradle of history. The profound, heavy silence of the library now permeates your very being, acting as an insulating layer between you and the remainder of the world. You are suspended in this vast obsidian expanse, a consciousness that has been refined by the absolute stillness into something clear, cool, and incredibly resilient. The limestone walls that house this sanctuary are no longer seen as physical barriers, but as the edges of your own tranquil inner landscape, a space where the noise of history has been muffled to a gentle, steady hum. Every fiber of your physical form feels completely liberated from the gravitational pull of daily obligation, replaced by a light, airy sense of floating within the protective, cool atmosphere of the estate. The air you breathe is the air of antiquity, filtered through layers of stone and time, carrying with it a purity that clarifies every thought and smooths every jagged edge of your subconscious mind. Your awareness is now a singular, unified presence, no longer flickering between external observation and internal dialogue. You have achieved a state of deep, resonant equilibrium, where the act of existing is entirely sufficient, and where the desire to change, to fix, or to achieve has been completely erased. The scribe, his work finished and his vigil maintained, has left behind a space that functions as a perfect mechanism of peace. You are the beneficiary of this legacy, a quiet participant in the ancient rhythm of the library. Each inhalation is an intake of this collective calm, and every exhalation is a release of the final residual anxieties that may have clung to you. You are in the heart of the library, and the library in its profound sleeping majesty is fully inhabiting you. Within this deep velvet darkness, you can perceive the passage of the night not through the movement of light, but through the shifting subtle textures of the sound or the absence of it, the way the building settles, the faint, nearly imperceptible sigh of the heavy wooden beams, the distant, muffled echoes of the city's silence. These are the only movements in your universe. They are rhythmic, predictable, and deeply soothing, like the tides of a sea that is perfectly still. You find yourself becoming one with these rhythms, your own breathing aligning with the building's internal pulse, your heartbeat slowing to match the enduring geological pace of the stone around you. It is a state of total biological harmony, a return to the natural, quiet cadence of human existence that has been long forgotten in the modern frantic age. The scent that anchors you, that rich, woody, and intensely grounding mixture of aged cedar, dried parchment, and the cool, damp minerals of the limestone, has become the very air you live in. It is a protective, insulating barrier that makes this sanctuary impenetrable to any external influence. You feel completely secure, wrapped in an invisible armor of peace that has been forged by centuries of dedicated, quiet study. There is no possibility of disturbance here. The library is a fortress, and you are its honored resting guest. You are free to wander the halls of your own mind, to explore the deep, dark corners of your own tranquility, and to lose yourself in the endless, inviting abyss of a sleep that knows no interruption and feels no end. As you descend further into the final crystalline depths of this experience, the sense of your own identity begins to dissolve, flowing like water into the cracks of the stone. You are no longer a person with a story. You are a facet of the environment, a silent observer in a world of absolute, unblinking calm. The darkness is not a frightening prospect. It is a warm, embracing, and infinite expanse of potential, a canvas for the most profound, restorative rest you have ever known. The night is complete, the work is done, and you are finally, truly, and eternally at home. You are sinking effortlessly and with total surrender into the deep, dark, and beautiful heart of the library, held by the stone, comforted by the silence, and ushered into an eternal, peaceful, and absolutely silent sleep. The environment within the library has achieved a state of total, absolute harmony, where the physical structure and your internal awareness have become a single, indistinguishable entity. You are suspended in the core of this silence, a deep, cool, and incredibly stable darkness that feels as if it were the bedrock of the entire world. The temperature is perfectly calibrated, a constant, refreshing chill that draws heat away from your skin, leaving you feeling light, airy, and entirely unburdened. Every detail of this sanctuary, the massive rough-hewn limestone blocks, the vast vaulted ceilings that disappear into the shadow, the endless rows of cedar shelves that stretch out into the infinite, is etched into your consciousness with a precision that makes the waking world feel like a blurry, ill-defined dream. You are anchored in this reality, a point of crystalline clarity in an ocean of profound restorative stillness. In this deep, monochromatic space, your mind has finally ceased its restless, analytical labor. There is nothing to observe, nothing to measure, and nothing to conclude. The necessity of thought has been replaced by the luxury of being. You find that you can direct your attention to the most minute, delicate sensations. The way the air moves with a glacial, rhythmic purpose through the ventilation shafts, the subtle, organic scent of the aging papyrus that seems to bloom in the quiet, the faint, resonant vibration of the building as it breathes in the weight of the night. These are not just sensations, they are the markers of your safety, the confirmation that you are tucked away in a place where time itself has stopped to catch its breath. You are a passenger in a vessel of stone drifting through the dark, unhurried and entirely at peace. The fragrance of the room, a complex layered perfume of cedar resin, ancient dust, and the sharp mineral tang of the earth, has become the atmosphere you breathe, a protective blanket that shields you from the noise and the friction of the world beyond the walls. You find yourself drinking in this air with a sense of immense, quiet gratitude. It is a clean, honest, and ancient scent free from the synthetic odors and the chaotic pollutants of modern life. As you inhale, you feel the tension in your chest unraveling, a slow wave-like dissipation of the stress that you didn't even realize you were carrying. Your muscles, no longer braced for the demands of the day, have gone slack, their weight settling into the supportive cold stone of the library floor. You are becoming a part of the architecture, a silent, unmoving feature of the room. There is a strange, beautiful freedom in this state of total non-action, because you have no role to play, no identity to maintain, and no future to secure. You have been granted the most precious gift of all, the ability to simply let go. The library is a space of finality. Everything that was meant to be stored, recorded, and preserved is already here. There is nothing you need to contribute, nothing you need to change, and nothing you need to remember. You are free to wander the depths of your own consciousness, which has expanded to fill the room, exploring the hidden, quiet corridors of your mind that are only accessible when the guard of the ego is finally lowered. In these secret halls you find only more silence, more dark, and more peace. As the night continues its slow, rhythmic progress, you find that you are falling deeper into the center of this experience. The sensation of being you is fading, replaced by a broader, more inclusive sense of being part of the library itself. You are the shadow. You are the cool, quiet air. You are the stillness of the stone. This is not a loss but an expansion, a release from the narrow confines of a singular life into the vast, calm, and eternal existence of the sanctuary. You are being held in the cradle of history, protected by the wisdom of the ages, and ushered toward a sleep that is as deep and as dark as the infinity of the cosmos. There is no end to this comfort, no limit to this peace. You are safely lost, perfectly at rest, and entirely beautifully asleep within the heart of the ancient, silent night. The library has transformed into a sanctuary of absolute resonant stillness, a place where the very concept of movement has become obsolete. You are floating within the deep, cooling darkness of the hall, and for the first time you feel the true weight of the peace that fills this space. It is a tangible, heavy, and incredibly supportive presence, a blanket of silence that holds you in place and prevents any stray thought or anxiety from drifting toward you. The architecture, with its towering limestone arches and its unending, intricate rows of cedar, is no longer a structure built by human hands, but a living, breathing extension of your own calm. Every breath you take is synchronized with the slow, deep, and rhythmic settling of the stone, a process that has been ongoing for centuries and which now, in this moment, includes you as an essential component of its steady, silent life. In this deep, monochromatic darkness, the boundaries of your physical form have begun to blur, blending seamlessly into the cool, dark air of the sanctuary. You find that you can perceive the room not through sight, but through a direct, intuitive resonance, a sense of the vast, hollow space, the quiet, orderly arrangement of the scrolls, and the pervasive, grounding smell of the ancient wood. This is a state of total sensory purity, where the distractions of the outside world have been entirely filtered out by the sheer density of the library's atmosphere. There is no longer any need for light, for your internal awareness is now a self-sustaining, luminous field of calm that fills the dark with a soft, warm radiance. You are safe, you are protected, and you are entirely free from the burdens of your own history. The scent that defines this sanctuary, the rich, resinous aroma of cedar, the faint, dry musk of ancient papyrus, and the sharp, cool tang of the limestone has become a constant protective shield. You find yourself retreating behind this olfactory barrier, feeling its weight and its security like a thick velvet cloak. Every inhalation is a reminder of the timeless nature of this place, an acknowledgement that you are in a realm where the laws of the outside world, the rush, the noise, the endless grinding gears of human industry have no authority. You are in a place where only the essential, the enduring, and the quiet matter. By simply existing here, you are participating in a tradition that spans millennia, joining the long, silent lineage of those who have found their rest in the heart of this great ancient archive. There is a profound, beautiful simplicity to the state you have achieved. You have stripped away every extraneous detail, every unnecessary thought, and every burden of identity, leaving behind only the pure, raw capacity for rest. You are a vessel of silence, a quiet, stationary point in an otherwise churning universe. The world may be in constant chaotic motion, but here, in the heart of Alexandria, in this forgotten and perfect sanctuary, you are still. You are the eye of the storm, the center of the wheel, the point of total unblinking equilibrium. This stillness is not a state of emptiness, it is a state of fullness, a rich, fertile ground where your own capacity for recovery and renewal can finally take root and flourish. As you sink deeper into this restorative darkness, the feeling of your own consciousness begins to widen, becoming as expansive and deep as the library itself. You are moving through the layers of your own inner world, exploring the quiet, silent halls of your mind that are only accessible when the demands of the day are fully abandoned. There is no destination in this journey, only the continuous unfolding process of descending into peace. You are being held by the stone, nurtured by the wisdom of the past, and ushered into a sleep that is as deep, as dark, and as peaceful as the history that surrounds you. There is no end to this rest, no morning to break the spell, only the infinite, dark, and perfectly peaceful continuation of your journey into the heart of silence. You are completely lost in the beauty of the quiet, a traveler who has reached the end of the road and found that the destination is simply the ability to remain perfectly, eternally, and blissfully at rest. The darkness of the library has matured into a substance so dense and velvety that it feels like a physical embrace holding you in a state of suspended grace. You are no longer navigating the vast halls of this ancient structure. You have become one with the architecture, a living, breathing part of the enduring, silent story that is etched into every limestone block and cedar shelf. The air within this sanctuary has grown still, a perfectly preserved pocket of atmosphere that smells faintly of the past, a mixture of dry, cured wood, the metallic tang of old bronze, and the clean mineral breath of the earth itself. Every time you inhale, you are drawing in the essence of this stillness, allowing it to settle into the deepest recesses of your being, smoothing away the last remaining jagged traces of your waking thoughts, until all that is left is a soft, flowing, and effortless peace. Your consciousness, once a busy, fragmented place, has expanded until it mirrors the immense vaulted proportions of the library itself. You feel the coolness of the vaulted ceiling high above you, the stability of the floor beneath you, and the reassuring immense weight of the walls all around. You are entirely encased in this protective shell, a structure built for the ages, now serving as your personal sanctuary for this infinite golden night. The world outside, with its noise, its unpredictable rhythms, and its endless demands, is nothing more than a faint, impossible memory, a flickering, irrelevant shadow that cannot penetrate the thickness of these walls. You are completely shielded from everything that has ever troubled you, existing in a state of total, unadulterated safety where the only requirement is to let go and sink deeper into the silence. There is a profound musical quality to this silence, a low, hummed vibration that seems to emanate from the very foundations of the library. It is the sound of thousands of years of human thought resting in perfect, undisturbed order. You find yourself tuning into this frequency, your own heartbeat slowing to align with the steady metronomic pulse of the building. It is a slow, grounding tempo, one that invites you to release the final, lingering tension in your muscles, to unclamp your jaw, to drop your shoulders, and to allow your limbs to grow heavy and warm. You are being lulled by the weight of history, a gentle, hypnotic pressure that keeps you tethered to the ground while your spirit wanders, untethered and free, through the dark, welcoming hallways of your own subconscious. Within this state of deep inner travel, you encounter images that feel profoundly familiar, yet entirely new. A shaft of moonlight piercing the dust motes in a silent atrium, the smooth, cold touch of a marble column, the gentle, rhythmic turning of a heavy, leather-bound scroll. These are not merely memories. They are the anchors for your rest, the visual representations of the peace you are now inhaling. They carry no weight, no demand, and no meaning other than their inherent, quiet beauty. You move through them with a sense of fluid, dreamlike ease, transitioning from one scene of absolute stillness to the next, each more soothing than the last, each drawing you further into the center of your own, deepest and most restorative rest. As the night deepens, you realize that this is not a transient state. It is a permanent, available reality that you have successfully accessed. The library is not just a place you visited, it is a place you inhabit, a state of mind that remains constant, waiting for you whenever the world becomes too loud. But for now, you do not need to think about returning. You are already at your destination. You are lost in the beauty of the quiet, a traveler who has found the ultimate sanctuary. The darkness is a soft, protective curtain. The silence is a soothing song, and the history surrounding you is a gentle guiding hand, leading you into the deepest, darkest, and most peaceful sleep you have ever known. You are safe, you are held, and you are finally, completely, and eternally at rest. The atmosphere within the library has reached a state of crystalline perfection, where the stillness is so complete that it feels like a tangible force of nature, a calm sea in which your entire consciousness is suspended. You are adrift in this dark, cool void, yet there is no sense of falling, only a sense of being perfectly held. The massive ancient stone walls seem to exhale a gentle, cooling energy that envelops you, shielding you from the passage of time and the chaotic energy of the outside world. Here, within the heart of Alexandria, you have stepped outside the flow of hours and days, entering a sanctuary where the only measurement of existence is the rhythmic, slow pulse of your own breathing, which has now become synchronized with the deep, grounding hum of the architecture itself. Every sensation has been stripped of its urgency. You are aware of the subtle, comforting scent of cedar, a fragrance that seems to anchor your soul to this place, and the faint, crisp, clean smell of stone that has never known the pollution of the modern city. It is a sensory landscape defined by austerity and beauty, a place where simplicity is the highest form of luxury. You find yourself focusing on the feeling of being completely and utterly supported, your physical body melting into the protective embrace of the silence. There is no task remaining to be done, no scroll to be unrolled, no ink to be prepared. Everything is in its place, everything is silent, and everything is at rest, including you. In this deep, monochromatic darkness, your mind is a wide-open mirror, reflecting only the stillness. Thoughts that might once have disturbed you now arrive as soft, distant ripples, passing across the surface of your awareness without leaving any lasting impression. You are no longer chasing them, you are watching them fade into the infinite background of the night. This is the ultimate final release, a total surrender of the need to control, to understand, or to perform. You are simply present, a witness to the profound healing power of total non-existence. It is a liberation that touches the very core of your being, granting you a sense of lightness that you have never felt before, as if the heavy, layered burdens of your life have been lifted away by the ancient, steady hands of the library's spirit. As the night continues its silent, unhurried march, you find that your perception has shifted into a deeper, more archetypal mode. You are no longer experiencing the world through the narrow lens of your personal history. Instead, you are sensing the presence of the ages, the countless scholars, poets, and dreamers who have walked these floors, who have studied these same shelves, and who have sought, just as you have, to find this very moment of peace. You are not alone in this dark. You are surrounded by the collective, resting wisdom of humanity, a presence that feels like a warm, supportive light in the middle of the shadows. It is a comforting thought, a quiet reminder that the peace you have found is part of a grand, ancient continuum, a legacy that you are now a part of. The transition to sleep is seamless, a fluid, liquid movement into the deepest ocean of rest. You are sinking effortlessly and with complete trust into the heart of the library. The darkness grows thicker, softer, and more welcoming, wrapping around you like a heavy, protective blanket. You feel the cool, solid strength of the stone supporting you, the ancient, woody scent of the cedar soothing your nervous system, and the profound, impenetrable silence, singing a lullaby that demands nothing but your total surrender. There is no tomorrow to wake up for, only the endless, dark, and beautiful continuity of this moment. You are safe, you are held, you are completely at peace, sinking down into the dark, silent depths of a sleep that feels as if it will last as long as the stars themselves. The long, winding journey through the silence of the library arrives at its final, inevitable stillness. There is nothing left to say, nothing left to observe, and nothing left to do. The darkness which once felt like a protective veil has now become a transparent, boundless expanse in which your consciousness can finally dissolve every trace of the exterior world, the memory of the bustling city, the weight of your own identity. The flickering remnants of thought has been completely extinguished. You are suspended in a state of absolute primordial peace, a point of singular awareness resting at the very center of the universe. The stone walls of the library are no longer solid, but are merely the vibrations of a deep, ancient harmony that resonates within your very soul, anchoring you to this final perfect moment of rest. The scent of the cedar has faded into a faint, ethereal memory, replaced by the pure, unblemished freshness of total silence. You feel as though you have traveled through the deepest, darkest corridors of the world, only to emerge into the heart of a vast, calm ocean, where the surface is as smooth as glass and the depths are infinite and welcoming. There is no longer any separation between you and the library. Between the observer and the observed, you have become the stillness itself. You are the shadow. You are the cool, stagnant air. You are the ancient sleeping knowledge, and you are the quiet, eternal night. This is not a cessation of existence, but a return to your original, unburdened state, a state of grace where you are free from the friction of living. In this final, profound descent, you find the ultimate, long-sought prize of your journey, the total surrender of the self. The heavy, protective armor of your ego, which you have carried through so many trials and days, has been gently laid aside, piece by piece, until you are entirely bare, entirely vulnerable, and entirely safe. You are held by the architecture of history, cradled by the wisdom of the ages, and ushered into a sleep that is so deep, so dark, and so fundamentally restorative that it transcends all human language. It is a rest that is not just for the body or the mind, but for the very essence of your being, a return to the quiet, dark, and beautiful void from which all things emerge and to which all things eventually return. The world outside continues its indifferent, chaotic cycle, unaware of the miracle that has occurred within these walls, but that matters not. You have found the sanctuary that exists beyond time, a place where the sun never rises and the noise never intrudes. You are anchored in the deep, silent bedrock of existence, and as the last faint tremors of consciousness fade away, you realize that this is not an ending. It is a transformation. You have reached the final boundary of the library, the last secret alcove where the silence is absolute and the peace is eternal. You are now asleep, tucked into the everlasting embrace of the ancient night, a silent, dreaming soul at perfect, immutable rest, lost in the beauty of a quiet that will never ever be broken.
Sleepy History with Theodore is created for relaxation, entertainment, and sleep purposes. The stories shared on this channel are inspired by historical events, daily life, and real periods in history. But they may be simplified, adapted, or narrated in a calming way to enhance the listening experience. This content is not intended to be a precise academic or educational source. While we aim to stay generally accurate, some details may be altered for storytelling flow and relaxation. Please do not rely on this channel as a primary source for historical research or study. By listening, you acknowledge that this content is designed to help you unwind, relax, and fall asleep. Thank you for your understanding and support.